We are live on LinkedIn. Good morning, LinkedIn. We are live on Facebook. Good morning, Facebook. Live on Rumble. Good morning, Rumble. Live on YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. And live on X. Good morning, X. Live Instagram. Good morning. And live on TikTok. Good morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend and a great Easter. Let's get back to the business. Let's get back to the business of me grifting and talking about topics that some people may disagree with me on. Because that's what it means, right? If you're saying something people disagree with, then you must be grifting. So let me get back to grifting this morning, because I'm going to speak on a topic that not everybody's going to agree with. Or actually, everybody agrees with the topic. Not everyone's going to agree with my positions on the topic, actually, is the more accurate way of saying it. We're going to talk about here today. Let me give a couple more minutes on TikTok for people to populate. TikTok tried to give me another community guidelines strike this past weekend. As a matter of fact, because of this very topic, not specifically this topic, I did a post on TikTok. Let me see if I can find that post within my phone. So I did a post on TikTok it might have come out Friday or Saturday. And I was talking about the medical industry. Let me see if I can find that post. Yeah, right here. Medical system distrust. Why we have distrust in the medical system. And TikTok at first blocked this video and said I couldn't put this video out. And they said it's misinformation. That's what they try to label it, misinformation, which is not a real thing. There's no such thing as misinformation. It's just information that somebody disagrees with. The problem with misinformation is that someone has to decide what information is acceptable, what information is not. As soon as you do that, you're going to get corruption. And it's the same thing I was saying about the medical industry. You can't do that. You can't say, well, hey, these people are going to decide what's okay and what's not okay. And anybody who does anything outside of that is not allowed. That's nonsense. So they gave me a community guideline strike on this, and that was supposed to get me kicked off of TikTok, but I guess it expires or something. I submitted a appeal, and literally 4 minutes later, no, it took longer than that. About 15 minutes later, I was back activated on TikTok, at least from that post. I guess it didn't stop me from doing anything. I guess I could have still went live, but they tried this just this past weekend on the topic of the medical industry, which is really what we're going to be talking about here today. RFKJ got us talking about it, but it's really more about the medical industry than it is so much about him, but we are going to talk about him as well. That being said, that's going to be the topic here today. Let me also tell you all something that I've been doing that is outside of this topic is I just started using, and I was telling one of my coaching clients this just yesterday, and I was telling another of our coaching clients just this 2 days ago, is that I just started using the paid version of ChatGPT. Y'all hear me use ChatGPT sometimes in these lives. I just started using the paid version of ChatGPT maybe less than a week ago. It's $20 a month, and it is amazing. I've already had it run some scripts for me. It's written some code for me. I don't know how to write script. I do not know how to code, but I told it what I wanted it to do. And then it said, okay, well, we'll solve it by doing this, this, this. All you got to do is copy this, paste this here. And I start doing it, and it actually works. So ChatGPT, I've said this already many times to my main audience, my business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals who listen to my daily podcast, which is called Work on Your Game. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. I've already told them this. I will tell you all this, is that if you do any type of work that is based on a computer, or it can be routinized, or there's somehow, some way, automation or any type of artificial intelligence could possibly do that job, it will replace you unless you catch up. You need to get on this, because what these things can do is going to replace any of you do any type of work that's like being a virtual assistant. Virtual assistance is not going to be a job 10 years from now. There will be no job called being a virtual assistant. And I have a virtual assistant, and there are virtual assistants out there who do it as a full-time job. There will be no job for being a virtual assistant. I'm making sure all of you understand. There will be no job. And what AI is about to do, I'm telling y'all this as well. What AI is about to do is going to be good enough that it can have voice conversations. So you know how sometimes you might want an assistant because your assistant can get on the phone and have a conversation. Well, what happens when the AI can have a voice conversation with the person who you're calling, and you don't need a human to do it? You can just program your AI to have the conversation. All this is coming within the next 10 years. And a lot of this stuff is already here. So if y'all have not caught up on this Chat GPT thing or any AI, it doesn't have to be Chat GPT. I'm using that one because it's the most popular, but y'all haven't got on this AI thing. Any of you who uses a computer consistently, and all of you are on a computer right now, your phone is a computer, trust me, you need to get on this. That's not even the topic here today. Let me get to the actual topic, which is RFK Jr. All right, we heard him giving a brief, it wasn't even, I don't know if we can call it a speech. He was giving a presentation a few days ago. This is probably maybe last Thursday, maybe Wednesday or Thursday last week. He was speaking and he spoke on autism, which affects a whole lot of people in the United States of America. And he made a couple comments on autism that, of course, we know what happens on the internet. People pull shit out of context. They took the little clip out of context and said, well, RFKJ saying this. And then a bunch of people took the little 90-second clip and they started pushing back on what was said in the 90 seconds when they missed the overall spirit of what he was trying to say. And as a matter of fact, I don't think they missed the spirit. What I think people did was, since they already don't like RFKJ, because he already had a negative reputation in the eyes of many before he even decided to run for president in 2024, which he ended up dropping that and joining the Trump side because he was actually going to run as a Democrat, right? Was he going to run as a Democrat? Then he jumps on the Trump side because Trump was willing to go along with his MAHA, which is Make America Healthy Again. I don't think he would have called it that had he been on the Democratic side. But anyway, a lot of people don't like him because of the reputation he had before he got involved in politics, which is he's been a lawyer and he's a guy who has consistently challenged the medical industry. We're going to get deep into that one here today, which is why I might get kicked off TikTok again today, because I'm going to get deep into that one and we're going to dig into what some like to call misinformation because they just don't like what's being said. We're going to get into that. So I'll tell you all up front while I'm thinking about it. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in my profile on TikTok, or my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. The link is also on my TikTok profile because there's a chance I'm going to do my best to navigate. There's a chance I may say something that gets me kicked off TikTok during my live stream here today for quote unquote misinformation, because we're going to go at the medical industry again. And so that's one thing. They don't like him because of his background. He's a lawyer who, if you watch his Senate confirmation hearing, he talked about how he's consistently sued medical industry organizations, companies in the medical industry, for things that he felt like they were doing wrong, like any type of malpractice or mispractice, etc. So a lot of the people in the medical space don't like him. So you can go look up the exchange he had with Bernie Sanders while he was doing that confirmation hearing. Is entertaining and interesting, to say the least. I will listen to the whole thing, but I know most of you don't have that type of attention span. So that's one. Number two, he stood next to Donald Trump. So all of you know the deal. If you stand next to Donald Trump, you don't have to stand next to him physically. You can stand next to him metaphorically. And by standing next to him, if you just say something neutral about him, doesn't even have to be positive. You say something neutral about him, then people are going to come at you with pejoratives simply because you said something neutral about Donald Trump. And y'all see people saying that, those kind of things, even in these comments when I'm doing these live streams. That's the number two thing. And number three, now RFK Jr. looks like he's about to start activating his, just putting into motion whatever his plans are, what he plans on doing when it comes to this MAHA, Make America Healthy Again movement, such as figuring out the causes of autism. Of course, he's attacking the jabs, the V word that I'm not going to say. He's attacking jabs of all kinds, and people are framing him inaccurately, but they're framing him as if he's against all jabs, which he's not. But again, if you want to make somebody look bad, then do you need facts? No. In fact, don't let facts get in the way of a good story. So, or accuracy get in the way of your feelings. So that's another reason why they're mad at him, because he's talking about he's going to figure out autism. And there's a bunch of people with kids who have autism and even autistic adults. Then you have him going against the jabs, and a bunch of people in the medical space are really, really, really mad about him going against the jabs. So we're going to talk about why that is. And what's the other thing he said he was going to do? Oh, yeah. And then he's just talking about food and how he's going to make food healthy again, especially for kids, and not letting the schools give junk food to kids. And there's a lot of people mad about that. We're going to get into why they're mad about it. This goes into what the medical industry is and what the medical industry is about. And when I say the medical industry, I'm talking about the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, the medical schools, and big pharma. So when I say the medical industry, I'm talking about big pharma as well. So all that being said, for those of you who don't know my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. Former 9-year pro athlete, author of 41 books, on 4 TEDx talks. I own this company called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we work with service-based professional entrepreneurs who are building their businesses on scaling themselves up from the 6 to the 7-figure level. You can learn more about me and us and what we do at workonyourgameuniversity.com. There's a link to that in my profile on whichever application you happen to be consuming this. So how many points do I have here today? We need to get through these in an hour. I'm on time. I got a clock here, and we like to start on time, end on time here. So we're not going to go past 10 o'clock anymore. I've been finding myself going past 10 o'clock. I'm not going to do that. The longest this live will be is 2 hours, maybe shorter. I'm going to do an hour of content, hour of, what do we call that? Community engagement. Let's just call it that. So let's get right into it. I may take less time. So expansion of the definition of autism. So this whole thing is about autism. Anybody here, either you have autism or you have a child with autism, put me in the comments if you or someone, your child has autism. We got any people with direct experience with autism in here? Okay, so I knew we have at least one person. Hilton Ramon, good morning to you, said me. Trover said your son has it. Miranda said several nephews. Traditional said your grandsons. Okay, so a lot of people have autism, been diagnosed with autism. And what RFK has been framed as saying is that he believes more people, and this is where the information war that I've been telling you all about, we're in the information war. It becomes this kind of existential question that we can't quite answer. So what RFK has said is that more people have autism now than had back in the day. In other words, more people are being diagnosed with autism. And he is proposing that we do some investigation to find out why more people are being diagnosed with autism. And one of the possible suspects in this case, so to speak, is the jabs, and the jabs that are being given to kids, and all the jabs that kids get when they are born. Any of you whose parents, it sounds like many of you are parents, that and Candace Owens did a deep dive on this maybe a year or two ago. And any of you see that video where she was talking about all the jabs that the hospitals say you need to give to your kids, like shortly after they're born. And she basically went through them one by one and explained why you don't want to get those jabs or why your child doesn't need those jabs. Here's what I tell you all up front. If you're trying to figure out and peg where I'm at, I have a child. He is going to be 3 years old this summer. He has not taken any jabs, 0 jabs, none, 0. So that's where I'm at. So any of you who wants to disagree with me, I just gave you a good reason to disagree with me and discredit anything that I say moving forward. But if you want to get the jabs, go ahead and get the jabs. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine. He has a child who was born. My child was born in August. His kid was born in December. So his kid's like 4 months younger than my kid, right? And he was saying to me, maybe a month or two after his kid was born, so it was like February of the next year, he said, does your kid get all his shots? And that's what they call it, the shots, right? Shots are the jabs, are the V words. Did your kid get the shots? That's what he asked me. My kid wasn't around. It's just me and him talking. And I said, no, my kid didn't get any shots. He said, well, what did the doctor say? That was his response. I said, my kid didn't get any shots. His response was, well, Dre, what did the doctor say? And I said, I don't give a damn what the doctor said. I'm the parent. He ain't getting no shots. None. He didn't get any. And he started challenging me and saying, well, Dre, I know that you're not a doctor and you know that I'm not a doctor. So why would you not do what the doctor says if the doctors say that your child needs to get shots? And I went briefly, this is a very short conversation, but I went briefly into how, well, just because the medical industry is telling you to do something doesn't mean you necessarily have to do it. And his position was more dogmatic, like, well, they're the experts, so you should listen to the experts. And I guarantee that probably half of you who are in here probably think the exact same way. Whoever the expert is, especially when it comes to something that involves your health and possibly living or dying, you should probably listen to what that person has to say. I do not subscribe to these appeals to authority. Doesn't mean I don't respect the authority of a person who has it for whatever reason, but even though you may have authority, you still need to explain to me why I should listen to your authority. Mr. Doctor, Mrs. Nurse, Mr. Physician, I still need to understand why I should do what you're telling me to do, even though I know you have the background and the experience and the credentials that says you know what you're talking about. I trust, but I verify. All right, critical thinkers, this is what we do. We trust, but verify. I trust, Mr. Doctor, you know your stuff, but you still got to explain to me why this makes sense. And if you're really an expert, you should be able to explain it to me, who does not have your expertise, in a way that I can understand it. If you can't do that, that's not my mistake. That's your mistake. That's a fault on your part because you can't explain your expertise. That's a problem. You have a communication problem. And if you're going to be dealing with patients, you must be able to communicate why I should do what you're telling me to do. I have believed this for a long time when it comes to the medical industry. I'm not a fan of the medical industry. I do not take over-the-counter drugs. I do not take prescription drugs. I don't really go to the doctor, honestly. I'll go as I age for just general checkups on things like that. But I'm not a person who goes to the hospital if I feel like something's wrong with me. I don't like what the medical industry has become. Let's just put it that way, over the last 25 years. And one of the reasons is not because of the doctors and the nurses. It's mostly because of Big Pharma. We're going to get to them in a minute. Now, actually, we're going to get to them a lot. A lot of our minutes going to be spent on Big Pharma. In my opinion, again, this is RFKJ. What he's saying is, now from that digression, he's saying that we're going to examine if the jabs that everybody is taking is one of the reasons why more people have autism. By the way, I'm going to take questions and comments after I'm done with the material. Okay, around 9 o'clock. Now, I usually get to the comments around 9 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock, right? 8:19 right now, Eastern. So that's what he's saying. Now, people are pushing back and they're reframing what he said into something that he didn't say, which is he's just straight up blaming the jabs on everything. He's just saying the V word is bad and you should never take a V word no matter what you do. That's not his position, but he's been framed as if that's his position. So that gives people an easy reason, doctors, everyday citizens, everything, to just attack him because he's against the V word. As if the V word never works and it never helped anybody and it hasn't reduced diseases and it hasn't removed certain things. Has some V words worked? Sure. And I'm not saying this as a medical expert, but I'm just assuming that because so many people take the V words and we have seen a reduction in certain diseases and viruses, et cetera, that the V word probably has something to do with that. Let's just say that to keep it fair and keep it balanced. RFK saying we're going to see if the V word is a suspect in this case has gotten people so angry. And let me tell you why they're angry. For those of you who don't understand how this game works, the medical industry in the United States of America has become what it's become because we are a capitalistic society. Follow my path here. Capitalistic society, everything is based on the dollar. All of you understand that, right? Now, since everything is based on the dollar, and I've said this from many different angles, the medical industry is the most, one of the most pernicious because it involves people's lives, living and dying, literally. The medical industry, being that it is capitalistic, it is driven by money. Therefore, people will start to do things in a capitalistic society. People will do things to make a dollar that they may not have done had a dollar not been involved. The medical industry has become susceptible to this in that many of you probably know that in many other countries in the world, developed nations, getting healthcare is not a cost-based thing. You don't have to decide, can I afford to go to the doctor? Can I afford to get this surgery? Can I afford to pay for the medicine? Can I afford to stay on this stuff can I afford to keep paying for the stuff that my grandfather needs because he's not going to live if he doesn't have these drugs? In many other developed countries, you don't even have to think about that because it's not a price thing because it comes as a standard operating tools that you get healthcare just because you're a citizen of the country. And you've had many people make strong arguments. Hey, healthcare is a right. Healthcare is not something you have to pay for. You've seen these arguments politically. The problem with a capitalistic society is going to be very hard to make this a mandated thing. The reason why it would be hard to make it a mandated thing that everybody just gets healthcare without having to pay for it is that the pharmaceutical industry, as we currently know it, would completely collapse because the industry is the industry because of the money that's involved. There's no money involved. A lot of people with big jobs making a lot of money and their whole lives are based on it. They would no longer have anything to do. What are those people going to do? And as I've already told you, when we talked about Donald Trump and his concept of draining the swamp, so to speak, the reason why it was so hard to drain the swamp between 2017 and 2020, and the reason why he's getting so much pushback trying to drain the swamp now in 2025, going on to 2028, is because when you attempt to drain the swamp, you are attempting to pull people out of the place that they have lived and worked for many years and made their money and made their livings. They haven't done anything else. If you remove that, now you got a whole bunch of people who are completely displaced and they have nothing to do, no way to make money because the way they made money, you just took it away from them. You think they're going to sit there and just let you do that? And the answer is hell no. They're not going to sit there and just let you do that. This is why Donald Trump had trouble draining the swamp, or is still having trouble draining the swamp, and why RFK represents a possibility of draining the swamp in the medical space. They're not going to sit there and let him drain that swamp. Again, what if you're making $500,000 a year working in Big Pharma, and whatever RFKJ is claiming he's going to do, you can draw the lines from what he's going to do is going to affect your $500K and maybe cut it down from 500 down to 250 or from 500 down to 100. And you're like, I'm not going to sit there and let this mofo take money out of my pocket. And what you need to do, you can't sit there and announce that on TikTok. But what you do is you find a way to frame him negatively. You get your media operatives to start putting the negative frame of the story out there about him to smear his name, make him like a terrible person, make it look like he's trying to make your kids lose their lives, and he's against the V word, and he's against the jabs, and anything pejoratively that can make him look like a complete idiot who knows nothing, and you shouldn't listen to this guy because he used to be on drugs himself, and he's not a guy you should listen to in any way, shape, or form. If you besmirch his name strongly enough, nobody's going to want to listen to anything he has to say. Therefore, he can't go through with his program, which might actually be good for people, but not going through with that program means you can keep your $500K a year salary and live happily ever after. Again, my question to all of you who are listening to this, if that was you whose salary was on the line, would you sit there and let him do it? For most of you, if I gave you some truth serum, the answer is no. You would not let that happen. Even if you knew that him doing what he's doing would actually help America and help kids and help people's health, you don't want to lose your $500,000 a year. And you don't want to have to go figure out another way to replace that $500,000. And again, that's a hypothetical, but it's a real thing. That's what's happening in the medical industry right now. That's why people are pushing back against him. Not necessarily because what he's proposing to do is a bad idea or the wrong thing. Not necessarily. It doesn't mean he's right. Let me be clear. Because, again, I don't even know as much details as he knows about these things. RFK is a lawyer in the medical industry. There's a lot of details in it. I'm not saying that everything that RFK is proposing is necessarily true or right. What I'm saying is they don't want him to even start looking. All right, what RFKJ is proposing to do is similar to what RFKJ is proposing to do in the medical space is similar to what Elon Musk said he was going to do when it came to the money. That whole Doge thing, the reason why he got so much strong pushback and the reason why people are celebrating that he's about to go back and get out of DC and go back to running his regular life is because they didn't want him figuring out what was happening with the money that was going in their pockets. So they figure out ways to smear his name. It's the same thing RFKJ is about to do with the medical industry. They don't want him to even start looking, let alone do they want him to succeed. They don't want him to even have a chance of starting, because if he starts looking, he's going to find something that he might find something that affects that person who's sitting there like, wait a minute, this guy might actually figure this out. This idiot, you may think RFKJ is an idiot, and somebody in Big Pharma is sitting there like, this idiot might actually figure out where my money's coming from and stop my money. Hey, I got a mortgage. I got a house. I got 3 kids. I got a stay-at-home mom at home. Stay-at-home mom at home. I'm taking care of my grandparents. I got 2 car notes, luxury vehicles, a BMW and a Benz. Hey, I can't let this dude take away my $500,000. And again, it's a hypothetical, but you got to understand, the capitalistic society, is this a real thing? Absolutely is a real thing. That's a real thing. Because of capitalism, and I'm not knocking capitalism, by the way, I'm a registered capitalist. Because of capitalism, one of the trade-offs, it's the third law of economics. There are no free lunches. Everything has a cost. The trade-off of capitalism is that people chase money. And when people chase money, they will sometimes do unethical things or things that they wouldn't want the whole world to know about just so they can make money. Now, has any of you ever seen somebody do that? Put the word yes in the chat. You ever seen someone do something that you knew that they knew they wouldn't want the whole world to know they did that, but they did it anyway because they could probably get away with it and it would make them some money? Put the word yes in the chat. You ever seen anybody do that? Or you've known of anybody doing it? And listen, you don't have to admit it, but maybe some of you have done that at some point. I know I probably shouldn't do that, but it's going to make me some money, so I got to get this money. So you do what you got to do, as long as you can get away with it. Right? Everybody's guilty of that. I'm guilty of it. Everybody's done it. And in the capitalistic society, this is what will happen. This is a trade-off. RFK said we're going to make America healthy again. So what does that mean? He's consistently advocated. Let me just continue on my points because I could do a whole hour just on this first point. But he has consistently advocated for jab safety. That's his position. Jab safety, meaning, do we need to just give people the jab just because the medical industry said give them the jab? He's saying, let's look at these jabs. Let's find out what's in the jabs. Let's do some studies and find out how these jabs are actually affecting people. And then we'll decide we should give them the jabs. Medical industry is saying, no, we don't want anything we say challenged. We're the experts. We have the expertise. We weren't on drugs for years like you were, RFKJ. We're not someone who's just trying to push the Trump agenda like you, RFKJ. Those are the pejoratives. We just want to keep doing what we're doing because the jab saves lives. This is what you hear doctors say. The jab saves lives. And as long as they keep saying that, especially after we're only 5 years removed from the virus, the big virus, a lot of people are buying into that. On top of the fact they don't like Trump, on top of the fact they were told not to trust RFKJ. All right, do you see where this is going? And this is the reason why he's facing an uphill battle. And this is the reason why, again, standing next to Trump and saying the things that he's saying, same thing that happened to Elon, RFK is going to get the same pushback. He's going to get this exact same pushback. And he ain't even got started yet. But he's going to get the exact same thing. Why? Because what he's pushing for is more rigorous testing and transparency from pharmaceutical companies. Again, pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money. Those of you who don't know, 80% at least of the advertising that you see online and on TV is paid for by pharmaceutical companies. 80% of the advertising. Here's something that a lot of you don't know. America, the United States of America, is the only country in the world where pharmaceutical companies can advertise the sale of their products. Did y'all know that? In other developed countries, a pharmaceutical company who has some drug, what's the drugs out there? Skyrizi, Viagra, all these random drugs. I know the names of them because I hear the commercials so often. They cannot advertise their products on TV. They can't do it. But in the United States, you can advertise your products on TV in the medical industry. And why do they advertise their products on TV? Because they want you to buy it. What happens when you buy it? They make money. Do y'all understand that the jab, when you took the jab, they made money? All right, the more jabs administered, the more the company that made the jab made. Doesn't mean the jab is necessarily bad. We won't get into that today because I'm trying to not get banned off TikTok. But if anyone has a financial incentive to make you do something, and then they're telling you should do it because it's good for you, you should be questioning that person's motives. That just makes logical sense, does it not? As a critical thinker, it just makes logical sense. Okay, you benefit if I take this jab. At the same time, you're telling me that the jab will benefit me. The problem is there's a conflict of interest there. You may tell someone who might not need the jab to take the jab simply because your hospital or your practice will make money if I take the jab. But the jab might also actually be good for me. So I don't know if you're telling me this because you're trying to help me out as the expert, or you're telling me this because it might put a couple extra dollars in your pocket or the pocket of your practice. I don't even want the conflict of interest to exist. Again, doesn't mean the doctor is telling you a lie. But the fact that the question even lingers in my mind makes me question the whole situation. And that's the issue with the pharmaceutical industry and its effect on the medical industry, on top of the fact that pharmaceutical companies pay for medical schools. They finance medical schools. So any of you ever been to a college campus and the college has a medical school, and the medical school is like separate from the rest of the college, so is on the campus, but it's like a separate area, the medical school. Notice how nice those medical schools are. You ever seen a trashy medical school campus? Ever seen one? University of Miami down here has a very, I guess, well-respected medical school. Beautiful. Most beautiful place. Like you can eat food off the ground. It's so nice. The medical school at University of Miami. And that money does not come just from tuition. That money comes from pharmaceutical companies. Now, why do they pay money to a medical school? They give money to a medical school because, well, who's writing the textbooks? Now, think about this. Who's writing the textbooks? They're paying money to the medical school. Who is teaching your doctor or your nurse what they know? Now, they go to school. How long is nursing school? How long you got to go to school to be a nurse on top of your 4 years? I mean, is it any additional years? Anybody know? Nursing. Medical is 8 years, right? 8 extra years, or how many years? Give me the number of years you got to do post-grad to become a nurse or a doctor. Anybody who knows. Just, I guess, a regular doctor, whatever that means. So how many years for nursing? How many years for doctor? Can someone give me the actual number? We know it's more than your normal 4, right? So nurse is another 2 or 4 years. Okay, so those 2 or 4 years when you're in school for nurse, Brian says, should we take books off the shelves or add books? So let me get to that. I'm going to get there. So nurse is either 2 to 4 years. Okay, what about doctor? What is doctor? Is it 8 years? I've had some doctors as coaching clients. I should have asked them. I think it's 8 years to be a doctor because you can't even, you don't see like a 25-year-old doctor. Right? It's not even, unless you're like Doogie Howser, MD. Remember Doogie Howser, that TV show from way back in the day? All right, I'm aging myself by saying that. Okay, doctors is 8 total, so 4 years extra. 8 years extra. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking after your 4-year degree. To become a doctor is 8 extra years. So if you graduate from college at 22, then you become a doctor when you're 30. It's a long time. So some saying 10 to 12. I think different types of doctorates, different types of doctors may be different lengths. Well, let's just say that anywhere from 2 to 8 years. 8 total. Okay, so 8 total. Okay, so you could be a doctor when you're 26, 27. All right, so let's just say whatever number it is, 2 to 4, 6 years, whatever. They're learning from textbooks and from who's teaching at a medical school, usually somebody who's in the medical industry. So there's a whole system that they got going. How do you get into the medical industry? Well, you had to go to medical school. So where's everybody learning from? They're learning from the textbooks. Where's the textbooks? Who's writing the textbooks? And who is sponsoring the textbooks? The pharmaceutical industry. So let's say I work for some pharmaceutical company. I am going to put some money behind a textbook on, I don't know, some type of pharmaceuticals that people can give to people if you have this virus or this sickness or you're having a baby, whatever. I'm going to put some money behind that. Well, how am I going to make sure that book leans? I'm going to make sure that book leans towards, hey, if this happens, you do this. And the this that they do is something that's going to lean them towards maybe getting the pharmaceutical that my company sells. Does not mean that the pharmaceutical my company sells is a bad thing. Doesn't mean that. The problem is there's a conflict of interest. A lot of people don't even understand how these dots connect. There's a conflict of interest there. So I remember when my son was born and we had a home birth, a planned home birth with a doula and a midwife, and she brought an extra person. And we took our son to the hospital only because he had meconium. We wanted to make sure he hadn't ingested it into his lungs. Meconium is just baby poop. And I ended up in the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, arguing with it wasn't an argument between me and the head physician who runs the entire NICU, because she was extremely offended that me, with no medical background whatsoever, was in there telling her what she was and was not going to do to my child. And her whole thing was, I don't think she said this in so many words, but her whole frame was, hey, I'm a doctor. I got all these years of medical experience. Who the hell are you, Mr. No medical experience, coming in here and telling me, a doctor, what I can and cannot do? I said, well, that's my child. My frame was, that's my child. I don't give a damn who you are. And I ended up getting my way. The point is that when I thought about it with this doctor, what reason did she have to push back so vehemently against what I was saying? Her reason was she just got out of medical school, where she was in for, let's just say, 8 years. And all during that 8 years, what is she being told? Over and over and over and over again. When this happens, do this. When this happens, do that. When this happens, do this. And who taught her that? The textbooks. Who wrote the textbooks? So she has a reason to believe what she believed. I don't think she was trying to do anything bad to me or my child on purpose. I believe she was defending what she had been taught for 8 years in medical school and racked up who knows how much in student loans. She was defending exactly what she had been taught. So she had no reason to believe that she was wrong. Why would she? And here I am, again, Mr. Nobody, who's done no medical school. Who am I to question her knowledge on medicine? I completely understand why she felt how she felt. Doesn't matter how she felt ultimately, but I understand why she felt how she felt. And I understand why anybody who's in the medical space, maybe some of you listening to this, if you're a nurse or a doctor, you're listening to me with no medical background, questioning the medical industry, and you're incredulous. All right, who are you to question this? I remember I was on Instagram with some kid who, I believe he was in his 20s, but he told me that his background, I said something about the medical industry. I made some post about the medical industry, kind of making fun of it. And this guy starts pushing back on the things that I'm saying. And the way he was talking, I was like, something doesn't sound right about this. And I said, what do you do for a living? Turns out he's a nurse. And I said to him what I'll say to all of you. I said, well, dude, you went to college, then you did extra to become a nurse. Now you're working in the nursing space. You work in the medical space. Like, honestly, do you have any grounds on which to challenge the medical industry that you work in and that pays your bills and that is the only thing you've ever done professionally as an adult? Of course you're going to defend it. What the hell else are you going to say? I can say anything about it. I can defend it. I can challenge it. I can trash it. I can support it. Why? Because I have nothing to lose by trashing it. I have nothing to gain by supporting it. You have a whole lot to lose by trashing it. So do you really have the grounds to say what you're saying, defending it? Because you don't have the leverage. You can't trash it because you will lose your job. You lose your career. And it would basically disprove the entirety of your adult life. You went to school pre-nursing. Is there a pre-nursing? Whatever that is. You went to school, got a nursing degree. Now you work in nursing. That's the only thing you've ever done since you've been an adult. Of course you're going to defend it. Who are you to challenge me on what I'm saying about it? You don't have the position to not defend it. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? And this is what I tell people. Like, if you couldn't say the opposite of the opinion that you're sharing, then I don't value your opinion because you're going to defend it either way. It's like if I'm talking to someone who's a college professor and I start trashing the education system and they start defending the education system, I'll ask them, okay, if you wanted to trash the education system, would you do it? And they probably wouldn't, because it would invalidate everything that they've done their entire lives. Like, you're 50 years old. You've been working in education since you got out of college. Of course, you're going to defend the education system. Would you trash it if you wanted to? If you did, you just invalidate the last 30 years of your life. Why would you do that? And this is the challenge that I have with people who are in the industry pushing back on the things that I say, which maybe some of you who are in here right now. Good morning, son. How are you? Okay, thank you. Close the door, please. Thank you. See you later. So all he's asking for is transparency. The issue with transparency is that something eventually is going to get discovered. And anytime you go to an industry, we just want you to be more transparent. We just want to see more of what you're doing. Something's going to get discovered. Doesn't mean it's going to destroy the whole industry. But maybe some of the things that they're doing are going to get discovered and going to get changed, and it's going to affect people. And the people who work there, as I already gave you this frame, they're not going to sit there and just let you attack their industry and attack their well-being and how they're making their money. Again, would you let someone do that to you in your line of work? Most of us would not. So RFK has these claims linking jabs to autism. And people are saying that these claims have been debunked by the scientific and medical communities, which damages his credibility. So a lot of people just think RFKJ, bye-bye. They think RFKJ just has no credibility because his claims have been, quote unquote, debunked. Here's the issue with debunking is that this is why we're in the information war, everybody. You can claim anything is debunked. You can make any claim, any position, any topic and say, well, that's been debunked. You can say that literally about anything has been debunked. The reason why we're in the information war, folks, is that more information is being created faster than we can consume it. Anyone can create any amount of quote unquote information. Every one of us has our own media platform, and no one has to accept any fact that they don't want to accept, because I can go find some counterfacts to any facts that you present. And there is no one ruling arbitrary body that says this is the facts and you have to accept this. And if you don't accept this, then you're not allowed to speak. That doesn't exist in the United States of America. One of the trade-offs of free speech is people can say whatever they want. Even if it's completely false, even if you don't believe it, even if it's been quote unquote debunked, they can still say it. The reason why we're in an information war that's only going to get worse, and this war is not going to end, is because no one has to accept any information they don't want to accept. So to say that RFK's claims have been debunked doesn't really mean anything if someone wants to believe RFK's claims. And if you wanted to believe something and I said it's been debunked, is that going to make you stop believing it? No. This is the issue. This is the issue that we're dealing with in America, and especially as AI continues to surge, is that you can create information at the snap of a finger. You can write a whole book on AI software, but you can't read a whole book in a whole day. You can create a book on AI software in 10 minutes. You can't read a book in 10 minutes. That's the problem. So there's more information than there is consumption. We got a problem here. So has he been debunked? According to some of you think he's been debunked. Some of you think he has no credibility, and some people think the exact opposite. Who's right? Who's wrong? Answer is neither one. So that's why this will always be a debate. So what RFK says that the jab schedule for children is too aggressive could be contributing to the rise in chronic conditions. I think that is a fair way of looking at things without knowing anything. If I didn't know anything about anything and I read that, I said, okay, that sounds fair. That's okay. Thank you. I got it. So he's saying that more and more jabs are being given to more and more kids when they're babies. And because of that, that may correlate to the rise in chronic conditions the kids are coming down with. Who has a problem with that? Anybody got a problem with that? That sounds logical to me. If you keep giving more foreign agents, you keep introducing more foreign agents into a body that has not yet developed a full immune system, then you may be introducing problems into that human body. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that concept? And what's wrong with looking at that as a hypothesis and then trying to figure out whether it's true or not? I don't understand how somebody could be mad about that. And the normal pushback that I see people giving to RFK when he says stuff like this is, well, he just shouldn't be questioning. That's generally what their answer is. He just shouldn't be questioning the medical industry. And then people go attacking him as if who he is has anything to do with that point. They're attacking the person rather than the point. That point is a completely logical point, and there's no reason why anybody should have a problem with that. You keep giving foreign agents to a child who does not have an immune system, of course, it may lead to problems. Again, this can apply to anything. So many people have labeled his views as dangerous, quote unquote, misinformation, dangerous misinformation. Here's the rule of thumb that all of you should take with you moving forward. As soon as you see some governing body or some person who is claiming or holding a position of authority call something harmful speech or dangerous or misinformation or disinformation or any term that sounds like that, you should immediately look deeper into what it is that they're attacking and why they're attacking it. Guarantee you it's not necessarily because the person who's saying it is wrong. See, here's the thing. Somebody says something that's blatantly wrong and everybody can see it is blatantly wrong, then people can just laugh at it and ridicule them, and the person just shrinks away like that Homer Simpson meme. You know that Homer Simpson meme where he's shrinking into the bushes? That's what people do when what they said is actually ridiculous. See, if what they said has any modicum of possible truth and possible credibility, you can't just do that. We got to figure out what's being said here. So anytime you see someone labeling things as misinformation or disinformation, it's simply because they're trying to block that thing from even being considered. So this is the issue. This is the reason why fact checking is not a thing. We don't want fact checking because fact checking puts the power of arbitration in the hands of a few, and they get to decide what is accepted as true and what is not accepted as true. That's bullshit. If it's true, then let the whole world find out. The open marketplace of ideas. I mention this almost every time I'm talking here. The 12 work on your game commandments. Commandment number 7 is the open marketplace. Meaning, if an idea is great, the open marketplace will show you that it's great. And if an idea sucks, the open marketplace will prove that it sucks. It's like if I walked around and said, hey, the sky is pink. And that would not get any traction except people making fun of it. It wouldn't get any traction because people can look and objectively see, well, the sky is not pink. Whatever color it usually ain't pink. And you don't need to label that. You wouldn't see any experts labeling that as misinformation or disinformation because it's so ridiculous that they don't have to put a label on it. Okay, they're like, all right, yeah, go to the world and tell everybody that. All right, that'll be into nobody will listen to you ever again. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way the open marketplace of ideas is supposed to work. Your ideas are good, it will be exposed. Your ideas suck, they'll be exposed as well. You should expose everything. So organizations who have labeled his stuff misinformation, guess who they are? The Center for Disease Control, aka the CDC, and the World Health Organization, aka WHO. You know what these organizations also did? I mean, we're going to talk about credibility. Didn't the president or the head of the CDC tell us that if you take the jab, you won't get the virus? Can anybody confirm that? Put the word confirm in the comments if you remember that being said. The head of the CDC during the virus said explicitly, there was no ambiguity about this. That person said, I believe it was a woman at the time, she said, if you take the jab, you will not get the virus. This is the head of the Center for Disease Control. So how can the Center for Disease Control be so blatantly either she was wrong or she was lying? One or the other. There's no other option for how we got that. She was either wrong or she was lying, but they're still credible to tell us don't listen to RFKJ. Well, why? I mean, yes. It's right there. The main thing that RFKJ has been challenging the medical industry on, or the thing that got the most attention, is his challenge of the jabs, right? This whole thing is a challenge of the jabs. All right, see you later. Now, the CDC head is known. It is confirmed. We all know it. Head of the CDC was either completely wrong because she doesn't know what she's talking about. Hopefully that's not the case. Or she was blatantly lying. Either way is bad about a jab. So now he's questioning the jab. And the CDC is the one who's going to tell us don't listen to him because he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to jabs. Well, wait a minute. What just happened 5 years ago? Now we're supposed to listen to y'all. Now y'all are the judge of who's credible when it comes to the jab. That doesn't make sense to me. World Health Organization, same thing. So my whole point here is I don't understand how an everyday citizen can look at any of these things and say, okay, I can't listen to RFKJ because these people told me not to listen to them. Well, what did they tell you 5 years ago? They told us a lot of things that ended up not true. So either A, they're not as smart as they claim to be, or B, they were just lying to your face. Which one was it? It had to be one or the other. Is there a third option that I'm not catching here? Is there one that I'm not considering? It had to be one or the other. Either they didn't know what they were talking about or they were blatantly lying. One or the other. So RFK calls for independent studies free of pharma influence to determine the long-term effect of the childhood jabs. Who has a problem with that? Can we say that one more time? Traditional said, my child speaks very well. Yeah, probably because he hasn't taken any jabs. So anyway, so RFK calls for independent studies free of pharma influence to determine long-term effects of childhood jabs. So here's another thing that many of you probably don't know, and you should understand this very well. All right, you need to understand this, that clinical trials, or not even clinical trials, but studies. You ever hear people reference like a study? There have been studies done on this and studies done on that. So we know that these things are safe to be taken. We know that you can take this jab, this medicine, this drug, etc., simply because there's been a study done on that thing. Here's what you need to understand is that companies, name a pharmaceutical company that we know, Pfizer. Let's say Pfizer. Pfizer and others, I was just using Pfizer as an example here, TikTok, so don't kick me off. Companies, big pharma companies, we don't even mention their names, they will fund and sponsor studies to find out the efficacy of their own pharmaceuticals. Then, of course, what's the outcome of the study? Of course, this pharmaceutical is safe. Of course, you can take this. Of course, it'll solve the problem. Of course, it'll cure the disease. So they fund a study, quote unquote, that allegedly finds out if their pharmaceutical is safe. Then the study proves that the pharmaceutical is safe, and now it passes through the FDA, and now they can go and sell the pharmaceutical, and they can run ads on TV and on ESPN to sell you the pharmaceutical. This is how it works. And also what happens, speaking of the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, people go, RFK talked about this in his Senate confirmation hearing. Y'all should watch the video of it. It's about 3 hours long, but you should listen. You don't even got to watch, just listen to it. He talks about this. People go from working in the FDA, which is the government, to working in big pharma companies. So you work at the FDA for 3 years, leave your job at the FDA, then you go get a job working at the company that you were just in charge of watching and making sure they were doing the right thing, regulating and making sure they were doing the right thing. Or you go the other direction. You could work at a big pharma organization as a CEO or the president, then you go get a job at the FDA, and guess who your number one company to regulate is? The one that you were just working at for 10 years. How do you think that's going to go? And by the way, folks, the way that this ends up going is the stuff that you end up buying over the counter and the stuff that your doctor prescribes for you to take or for you to give to your children. And this is the system. In case any of you didn't know, this is the system that we have in the United States of America right now. This is happening right now. This has been happening. So when RFK comes along and he says, we're going to look into this and we're going to challenge this and we're going to start digging into what's going on here, this is why all the alarms start going off. They don't want this guy to find anything or uncover anything that's going to stop the gravy train. And again, the reason why this is because we're in a capitalistic society. In a capitalistic society, these are inevitabilities. And it's not even so much bashing the medical industry. I am bashing them, but it's not, the root of this is not because the people in the medical industry are bad people. It's not because they're bad people. It's when you incentivize human beings respond, period. Human beings respond to incentives. The number one incentive for a driven / ambitious, for lack of a better term, people in the United States of America, number one incentive is money. Why? Because we're in a capitalistic society. Everything's about money. The cost of things keep going up. You got to pay your bills. Everybody needs food, clothing, shelter. Most of us spend half of our waking lives working. Why? For the money. Everything's about the money here. And when you make everything about the money, eventually people are going to do things that they probably might not have otherwise done. Why? To get the money. All RFK is doing is looking into that and saying, maybe we shouldn't focus on the money so much anymore. Let's focus on something else. And they're like, no. You're not going to take away our money. This is what happens. So numerous large scale studies, according to some, have shown there is no link between the jab and autism, which means RFK just has an outdated position that should not be even considered. Well, let's not even look at what he's saying. Nothing to see over here. There's an outdated position because, again, his position that the jabs can lead to autism has already been debunked. We already figured that out, everybody. Nothing to see over here. Don't even listen to anything this guy has to say. Again, as soon as people start talking like that, that's when your radar should go up. I don't care what the subject is. As soon as people start telling you, all right, this person just posed a question, ignore the question, ignore the person, don't consider anything that they say, that's when your radar should go up and you should start getting an alarm system going off in your head. Like when I'm driving my car sometimes and I'll be backing into a parking spot and it has this rear view camera. When you start to get close to the curb or a bush or something like that, it'll start beeping. And then the car will literally slow down and it'll say, hey, your driving speed has been significantly reduced because you're near a hazard. Tap this button if you want to put the speed back up. Basically, the system is designed to not let me crash into something. And anytime you hear somebody telling you, don't listen to anything this person said, don't consider them at all, don't even think about the idea that they're pushing, that's when you should start getting that kind of beeping system going off in your head. Okay, there's something that they're trying to hide here, something that they don't want this person to bring up. And you should be even more concerned when they start attacking the person on a personal level. Because, see, all they do is attack RFK on a personal level. I guarantee you, I'm not even looking at the comments, but when I get to them, I guarantee you're going to see some of y'all who are on TikTok, you probably already can see this. There's people in the comments who are not questioning anything that RFK has actually said. They're just attacking him personally. When they start attacking the person, that's called the ad hominem. They start attacking the person rather than the point. That's because they don't want you to pay attention to the point. That's what that means. So RFK champions this principle of informed consent. Say no parent should be coerced into taking a jab without full disclosure of risk. Again, who has a problem with this? If you have a child, don't you want to know what the hell you're putting into your child rather than having a doctor say, hey, just trust me, bro. Just do what I say, bro, because I'm a doctor and I got all this experience. And if you don't do this, then this is what the doctor said to me the night my child was born. I fear for your child's life if you don't let us do our jobs. That's literally what she said to me. Said, I fear for your child's life if you don't let us, that's her, the head physician, and all the nurses in the NICU, if you don't let us do our jobs, I fear for your child's life. Well, you heard my child, right? No jabs, 0, 3 years. But she feared for his life. Now, again, do I think she was trying to manipulate me? Well, in a way she was. Not that doesn't necessarily make her bad. I believe she was telling me what she had been taught in school, that she truly believed that if I don't get to do these things, this child might not live. Do I think she truly believed that? I do believe that she believed that. Now, why does she believe that? Because that's what they taught her in medical school. That if you don't do these things, your kid's going to die. So when your doctor comes to you, all of you listen to this, and they say you need to do this, this, and this, and you push back, and they'll say something like, well, if you don't do that, you might lose your leg, or you might die. You may never walk again, or your child may never breathe again, or your kid, you may not survive. Or, hey, you got to get this C-section because you might die while giving birth. Why do you think the doctors say that? And everybody says that to people because they were taught that in medical school. They're not all telling the same coordinated lie at the same time. It's not like they all get on a Zoom call and say, all right, this is the lie we're going to tell mothers that you got to get a C-section. Otherwise, you're going to die while giving birth. No, that's what they're taught in medical school. So that's why all the doctors say that. And that's why so many moms get C-sections. Not because you actually need it, but because they taught them that you do need it. And if you don't have enough information to push back against it, then what you going to do? You're in labor. You're in pain. You're not of calm mind and body. And the doctor is saying, well, we got to do this. Otherwise, you might pass away and your baby might pass away in the process of you giving birth. So we got to do this major operation when you get the kid out. What are you going to do? What you going to say? No? What you going to pull up Chat GPT and find out if it's true? In that position, you don't have any recourse to push back. And this is what they truly believe. Again, this is not some coordinated scheme to deceive you. This is what they truly believe because this is what they were taught for 8 years. You teach somebody something for 8 years and they spend $300,000 learning it, they're probably going to believe it. I mean, wouldn't you? All right, this is how it works. So what RFKJ is saying, we just want informed consent. Whatever I put in my body, I want to know what it is. Again, who has a problem with that? If I'm going to put something in my kid's body, I want to know what it is. Whereas the medical industry will be, well, hey, you just got to do it because we said so. If you don't do it, your kid can't go to school. I get that question all the time. People saying, well, Dre, if your kid doesn't have his shots, he can't go to school. All right, good. All right, he ain't going to school. He can go to my university. All right, there's no teacher in America who can teach my kid better than me. So good. He can't go to school. Great. So that means we ain't got no other option. Perfect. Yeah, but I'm being tongue in cheek here, but I'm also dead serious. And what people will do, again, instead of addressing your actual question, they'll just try to go over the top of your question. Oh, well, you can't go to school if you don't take the shot. So take the shot. All right. So I'm not allowed to know what's going in my child's body because he can't go to school. All right. Really? So I'm going to risk my kid's health just to make sure he can go to public school. Why? That trade-off doesn't make sense to me. So many people see his rhetoric as fear-based. They say that RFK is fear-based talking, increasing hesitancy for the jab, and lowering public health protections in vulnerable communities. This is the language right here. Let me read this sentence again, because this is what you hear from people. This is what you hear over and over again with RFK. It sounds like this. RFK has fear-based rhetoric, which is increasing jab hesitancy. So 1 is fear-based, 2, jab hesitancy, 3, lowering public health protections, 4, vulnerable communities. So they got all 4 in one sentence. 4 in 1. So all of these are fear-based. That's the appeal to emotion fallacy. Jab hesitancy, as if hesitating to take a jab is somehow a bad thing or you're making some type of mistake. I don't know why. Potentially lowering public health protections. What exactly does that mean? Public health is why we're supposed to take the jab, right? And if you took the jab, you won't get the virus, right? Isn't that what they said? Right? And in vulnerable communities. So this is the one they use on you. If they can't get you through to you or anything else, this is the last one. This is the power punch at the end of the combination. So they hit you with the jab, the right cross, the left hook, then the uppercut. The uppercut is the vulnerable community. The vulnerable community. So, hey, maybe you live in a nice community and you have money and you can pay for a doctor, but these people in the vulnerable communities, we can't hurt them, right? We can't hurt the greater good of public health. We got to make sure they do what they want to do, right? See, this is the game that they play. All right, this is the game right here. And if all the logic fails, and they just go to the emotion. All right, so some of you are more emotional than others. You got to be very aware of the appeal to emotion fallacy. People will appeal to your emotion. They can't figure anything else out. You remember the virus, 2020 into 2021. What'd they tell you? Well, hey, you are only 27, so you may not get into terrible shape if you get the virus. Maybe you'll survive the virus, but what about grandma? Grandma's not going to survive the virus, so you're okay just to have your freedom and do what you want to do. You're going to go to some super spreader event, quote unquote super spreader, which I guess didn't matter when they had the BLM protests. The super spreader didn't matter then. But you're going to go to some super spreader event just because you're young and you're healthy and you can get by. But then you're going to go say hi to your grandma, and your grandma's going to pass away because you wanted to exercise your freedom, Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right, and then this is where we end up. See, that's the appeal to emotion, and that's how they use it against you. So what RFK wants, conflict of interest in these regulatory industries, and he says, I already said this, that regulatory industries combined with the big pharma companies, they will recommend and profit from the jabs. Again, this is a fundamental conflict of interest. Would you want to do business with somebody like this? Again, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. I remember I once went to get my car fixed. I can't remember what I was getting fixed, but in the process of the car getting fixed, the guy in the auto shop said, "Hey, you need new brakes." I said, "Well, how much?" And my car was already messed up, man. I think he just read me. I was like maybe 19. So he got me too. And he said, "You need new brakes." So how much are the brakes? And whatever he charged me for the brakes, he way overcharged me. I paid for it. He did it. Why? Because he probably read me as a sucker who he could get by on it because I didn't have enough information. And back then, he got away with it. He did. I paid for it, whatever it was. I never saw the break. I never got him to explain it to me. I didn't know what I didn't know. He used it against me. And medical industry does the exact same thing. They do the same thing. And if you don't know what you don't know, well, what are you going to say? Again, this is why the people in the medical industry are pushing back so strongly against anyone who goes and gets their own information, anyone who challenges the dogma of the medical industry, whether a citizen like me, or an RFKJ or anybody else. And what they'll do is they'll try to ridicule you. This is what they do. They ridicule you. Like, oh, well, I went to medical school for 8 years, but you got some information from Chat GPT. I guess we should listen to you. What they do is try to ridicule you for asking questions about the things that they're doing. But the bottom line here is, folks, and this is the frame that I have, and you can use this frame if you wish. If I put it in my fucking body, then the final decision is made by me, not you, Mr. Doctor or Mrs. Nurse. I don't give a damn where you went to school. All right, it's my body. I'm going to decide what I do and don't do. That's my child. You're not going to decide. I don't give a damn about my kid not being able to go to fucking school. All right, if he ain't alive, or what the hell do I care if he can go to school or not? And you think he won't be alive if I don't do what you say, but I disagree. And if what you're saying is true, Mr. Doctor, you should be able to explain it to me in plain enough language that me, with my lack of medical expertise, can understand what you're saying. If you can't do that, that's not my fault. That's your fault. I'm not just following it just because you said it. Fuck that. No, that's my child. I'm not risking my health based on your dogma. And this is what RFK is trying to get more citizens to understand, what I just explained to you. He wants more everyday citizens to understand this. Not many citizens are of this frame, because many citizens are like I told you, my friend who said, well, what the doctor say? And since you're not a doctor, Dre, why are you not listening to what the doctor says? So who cares what the doctor says? I don't care what the doctor says unless the doctor can explain what they say in a way that makes sense to me. Then I care. But if you can't explain in a way that makes sense to me, I'm not doing it. And that's it. And one of the reasons why this information war that we're in is going to cause more division amongst people, this is one of the reasons, is that more of us, everyday people who have no quote unquote expertise in a certain field, we can have more information in that field than we've ever had access to. You don't have to be an expert to have information. Information is, do you understand that a C-section is a major surgical procedure, and that many women end up having a C-section because the doctors tell them that you have to have one under the threat of either you or your child may not live if you don't have one, when that's bullshit. If you actually went through it normally, it may take longer and it may be more painful, but you will have the baby, you'll survive, and they'll survive. But they don't tell you that, because in the medical industry, their thing is they want to get you out of that bed as quickly as possible so they can get the next mom in the bed, do the same thing to her. More people come into bed, the more they can charge, the more money gets made. I told you this is a trade-off of capitalism. That's the real game. But they don't tell you that because, well, is a doctor thinking about that? No. But is that what happens? Yes. RFK, he's starting with autism, but what he's claiming he wants to go through with this, he's not going to be able to do it all over the course of 4 years or 3 and change. But just the fact that he's threatening them is why they're pushing back. And some of them may be completely indifferent to the concept of where's autism coming from. Many people in the medical space don't even care. They don't even think about that. But the fact that he's even starting means what? A slippery slope. If he can do this, he can do that. 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 Eventually, he's going to find a way to their doorstep, and they don't want that to happen. On top of the fact you have people who've been indoctrinated by the medical industry since they were in college. Somebody's 45 years old. They started college when they were 18. So what is that? 27 years? 27 years of the same training and the same information. And now here comes this guy who was on illicit street drugs for several years, and he's going to challenge what you have come to believe through 8 years ago in the school. Are you going to sit there and let this uneducated, non-expert individual who you already don't like because he's standing next to the politician that you've hated the most all of your life, you're going to let him interrupt what you've been doing in your career for the last 27 years? Or would you sit there and let that happen? Again, none of you will let that happen. So I'm trying to help y'all understand why RFK is getting the pushback he's getting. I'll say about 2% of the pushback is about anything that has to do with logic or information or the actual medicines that he's challenging. 2% of it has something to do with that. The other 98% has something to do with a whole lot of other stuff that have nothing to do with medicine or health or life or any of that. So he's pointing out the conflict of interest, which I've already explained to you. His critics argue that he's undermining public trust. Yes, he is undermining public trust. He should. I don't mind RFK undermining public trust in something that some bureaucratic organization is telling us we should just do it just because they said so. I thought after the jab, after COVID in 2020 going into 2021, I thought that was enough for everybody to say, actually, let me back up. 2016, that's where this started for me, what some people call the red pill. I thought 2016 would be a red pill for damn near everybody. I was wrong about that. It was a red pill for me because I said, well, there's no way Trump can win. There ain't enough people in America who would vote for this guy because all these terrible things that I had been conditioned to believe about him. Then when he won, I said, there's no way half the country is xenophobic, racist, and against everything that Trump is allegedly against. No way half the country is that, but he got half the votes. So how is that possible? And I said, well, the only way that's possible is not because half the country is racist. No, I've been to too many parts of America to believe that to be true. No way. That means the things they were saying about Trump just can't be true. And once I realized that, then I started to look and say, oh, let me listen to people who are actually supportive of him. What are they saying? Let me find out what the actual story is about him. And it turns out the story was a lot different than what I've been told. That's when I started to get red pilled and say, oh, a lot of stuff they've been telling us is not true. And now let me go get some other information. Let me go listen to some people who I was told not to listen to. Let me see what they're saying. That's when I started to realize, oh, it's a whole bunch of bullshit that's been taught to us. Now I started to get it. Some people got the red pill in 2016. Some of you already had the red pill your whole life based on how you were raised, where you come from, etc. I didn't get it till 2016. Then in 2020, we got another red pill. Just in case you didn't catch it, just in case you didn't get it the first time. Okay, here's the virus. CDC, the Republican president and the Democratic president said, if you take this jab, you will not get the virus. They all said it. Trump said it. All right, let's be clear. Trump said it. And he was probably saying what he was told to say. Joe Biden said it. The CDC said it. WHO said it. A bunch of people on TV said it. If you take the jab, you will not get the virus. I know people who took the jab, the booster of the booster, the other booster, the jab, you got to get 2 shots. Another booster. I know people who took 5 or 6 shots, still got the virus, and were sick for a month. Now, I thought that would be enough of a red pill for most people. Okay. All right. Now they did that. We know that we shouldn't believe anything just because of who said it. But here we are, 2025. Here we are. What does this mean, folks? Human nature. It's not that people are not smart. It's just human nature. Is that if you get people nervous and fearful and afraid, then you can tell them pretty much anything and they'll accept it. Again, this is the playbook against Trump. To make people not like Trump, you just had to get them nervous about what he's going to do to certain groups of people, anybody other than a white man, a heterosexual white man. You had to get them fearful. He's going to do these terrible things and destroy America, and we're going to go back to the pre-civil rights era. And scared and or angry. He's a terrible person. Look at all these terrible things he did. And you could take something like January 6, 2021 as proof of this. And now nobody wants to hear anything from Trump or anybody standing next to him. This has been properly done. This is what they call a PSYOP, psychological operation. It has been executed perfectly. And now nobody wants to hear anything from that side. So what RFK is doing is giving a voice to parents who feel dismissed or ignored by medical professionals when their children experience any type of adverse reaction, or the parent is questioning whether there will be an adverse reaction. And again, parents, those of you who are parents of young children, or you're an expecting parent, any of you knows an expecting parent, they need to understand these things. The good news about the world that we're in today is that there are plenty of books on this stuff. There's plenty of material out there. RFK, Candace Owens has plenty. There are plenty of other people. There's been people on the Joe Rogan show who challenged the dogma of the medical industry, and look how people respond to them. This is what should be waking you all up. When you see these strong negative responses to someone who is simply questioning the dogma of any space, that should make you pay a whole lot of attention. What is this person saying, and why are they so strongly against it? It baffles me how this blowback happens over and over again, and still people don't wake up and say, well, wait a minute, why are they so strongly against this? What's so bad about it? Let me find out what's actually being said so I can find out why they're so upset. Why are they so upset about RFKJ? That's what it would do to me. But again, I'm a critical thinker. Most people are not critical thinkers. So you got to meet them where they're at. And most people are much more easily swayed by emotion than they are by logic. So this is why it works with the RFK thing. So what medical experts say is that anecdotal evidence and emotional testimonials cannot replace scientific consensus built over decades. Again, that's a false frame. So let me say that one again. They warn that anecdotal evidence, i.e., here's an example, here's an example, here's an example. Those are anecdotal evidence. And emotional testimonials. Hey, I took this shot and this bad thing happened to me. That's an emotional testimonial. They cannot replace scientific consensus built over decades. Here's the problem with that frame. The scientific consensus that's been built over decades is based on people who work in certain industries, and they're paid by certain industries. This is the reason why the biggest problem here is not the medical industry. The biggest problem here is capitalism's effect on the medical industry. And I am not knocking capitalism. What I'm saying is, again, third law of economics, ladies and gentlemen. First law is supply and demand. Second law is diminishing marginal returns. The third law is opportunity costs / trade-offs. Everything in life has a trade-off. The trade-off of capitalism is that people will do things for money that they should not do and probably would not do if there was no money involved. The medical industry is run by money. It's a very capitalistic industry. It's all about money. It's a bunch of money being made in big pharma. You want to make money. You want a career where you are guaranteed to make pretty good money. Get into the pharmaceutical industry. All right, medical sales. You could be like a traveling medical salesperson. I know people who do that. Actually, I know a bunch of people who do that. They never quit. Any of you know anybody who's a traveling medical salesperson? Put me if you know anybody who's a traveling medical salesperson. Here's one thing I'll tell you about them. I never seen one of them quit their job. They just keep doing it till they can't do it anymore. Or they don't want to, or they just don't want to travel anymore because they want to spend time with their kids. Any of you know a person who's a traveling medical salesperson? I've never seen one of them quit their job. Never. So Giacomo says, me, I used to work in the medical office and they would bring gourmet lunches. Yeah, they don't quit. They just keep traveling. Why? Because there's a lot of money to be made. Traditional said, me, they make big bucks. Yeah, they don't leave. So if you want to make money, you want a guaranteed job, don't be a lawyer. Don't become a lawyer or a doctor. That takes too much time. Just go to get a 4-year degree, if even that, and just get into the medical sales industry. All right, there's a bunch of money to be made there. All you do is just go to office and sell your shit. Because when you make a sale, boom, you good for the month. All right, all you got to do is make sales. Yeah, so freedom, you got it. $1 million home. If you're a good salesperson, and sales is a good skill you can use anywhere. Anyway, scientific consensus, ladies and gentlemen, is based on there's a question of, let me put it this way. There's a question of what's been paid for. And if we don't know, there's no transparency, then you don't know who to trust. That's the problem. So what RFK, another criticism of him is that he's pushed for the removal of mercury from jabs and brought attention to other potentially harmful additives. And again, people are just shutting it down and saying, don't listen to this guy. I've already addressed that. And some say it's been removed already. This thimerosal, also known as mercury. And RFK continues to focus on it. Some people say that he's misleading. Well, let's just say that he is misleading. Sometimes you got to play that game in order to beat your opponent. Sometimes you got to beat them at their own game. Sometimes you have to beat your opponent at their own game just to get things to shift in the direction that you want them to shift. Those of you who know history know that Abraham Lincoln is often noted for being this type of person, being somewhat of an opportunist. that a lot of people think the Civil War in America was started over slavery. It wasn't really over slavery. It was about, again, ostensibly, Lincoln purported that he just wanted to keep the Union together because the North and the South were divided over several things, slavery being one of them. And Lincoln started the Civil War because he didn't want the country to divide. He just wanted to keep the country together. That was the main thing when the war started. And then as the war progressed, Lincoln just got more and more radical about, hey, we need to end slavery. And a lot of people say he was opportunist about that he started with, I want to keep the country together. Then he made it about slavery when people think the whole time it was about slavery, but he couldn't say that up front because he wouldn't have been able to get the country. He couldn't have been able to get the Union to go to war just over slavery. The point being that he had to play the game. His goal was, I want to keep the Union together. So he had to play the game in such a way that he could get enough people on his side to get them moving. Then he could get his real agenda off the mat. And sometimes in life, you got to do that. I tell people, don't complain, play the game. Sometimes you got to play the game. If you want to get a certain thing done, you can't do it just a straight and narrow way, because if that was the way that it worked, then we wouldn't need humans. Anyway, so RFK frames his jab stance as pro-safety, pro-accountability, and not anti-jab, arguing that questioning pharma is patriotic. I 100% agree. Anything that has substance, folks, it can stand up to questioning. That's the bottom line. If you have substance, you can stand up to questioning. Personally, I talk about this often. It was something that I was looking at the other day. I can't even remember what it was. It may come back to me in a second. But I appreciate when somebody questions me. If I say I'm an expert or I know my stuff on a certain subject, I'm not an expert on this subject. I'm an expert on critical thinking, however. I'm not an expert on medicine, but I'm an expert on critical thinking. If somebody starts to challenge or question me on something that I've said or something that I've done, I'm happy to be challenged or questioned. Unlike people in the medical industry who seem to have very strong aversion to being questioned, because they try to hold this authority position to where you can't question me because I'm this. I was once talking to a college professor who said this exact frame. This person said, it was a woman, I will say that. She said she was on the internet and she had posted something about her work on the internet, or somebody posted her work on the internet, and a bunch of random people were questioning and challenging what she had posted or what she had published, and basically shitting on her for the things that she had published. And she got to the point that she just started, blocking people and not responding to people. And one of the things that she said was, I'm a college professor. Why do I have to respond to something that some random person on the internet says? My pushback to that is, if you're truly an expert at what you do, you don't mind I don't care who questions me. You could be a bum on the corner living in a cardboard box. If you question me on something that I've said on which I know my stuff, I'm happy that you question me for several reasons. Number one, it allows me to display my expertise. Number two, it helps me understand that if you have this question, there's probably a bunch of other people with the same question, so I might make some content out of it. And number three, it helps me strengthen my position because now I know what the natural pushbacks may be to the things that I said. Anyone who's truly an expert likes being questioned. They're not mad when somebody questions them. They're happy. I will happily accept anybody questioning me on anything that I know my stuff on. Why? Because, again, for those three reasons that I just gave you. Please challenge me on anything that I say I know my stuff on. You can check my track record. I've been online for a long time. My receipts are out there. So the mainstream media often paints RFK as an extremist, and that dilutes any public discussions around medical ethics and regulatory reform. So when they call him an extremist and they say, well, this guy's just crazy, or this guy was on drugs, or any negative thing they can say about him, again, attacking the person, not the point, then you are more apt to not even consider the point because they've already devalued and discredited the person. And this is the issue with how the mainstream is talking about RFK, because it leads people, not us, but people, to not listening to him at all just on that basis. And that's nonsense. If the medical industry is as solid and as all about health as it claims to be, then it should be open to hearing someone who is really willing to challenging them. Here's what I say to people. Anytime someone has a really strong opinion on any side of a conversation, what I say to them is, what is the strongest argument by a really smart person who believes the complete opposite of what you believe? What's their strongest argument, and what's your response to that? Everybody got that? All of you should use this. I'll give you this one. You should use this. Anytime someone has a really strong opinion on any subject, ask them the following. What is the strongest argument by the smartest person in the world against your position? Like, the smartest person in the world disagreed with you. What is their argument, and what's your response to that? And if they're truly an expert, they can answer the question. Now, I just gave you both pros and cons on the RFK side. The medical industry doesn't want to hear anything that he has to say because they don't want to deal with him because he's a lawyer. He knows how to fight. I don't mean physically fight. He probably can physically fight too, but he knows how to fight and go back and forth with them. They want to block him from even saying anything so that they don't have to deal with him at all. That's what should make your radar go up. Everybody understand? All that said, folks, let's open the floor for discussion. We got about 40 minutes here for discussion. I do need to take a restroom break, so give me 90 seconds here. What I'm going to do right now is play you, I think, a new episode of my show, Why Western Society is Collapsing. This is the latest episode. Today's the 21st. Yes, this morning's episode of my show, Why Western Society is Collapsing. Let me put this on 1x speed and let y'all hear some of this. Yeah. 90 seconds. I'll be right back, and then we'll take questions. Be right back. I like the approach. Make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. Then we put all the.
He knows how to communicate in such a fabulous way.
I can't say it enough. Work on your game. You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. Then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 3 of our ongoing mini-series here, Why Western Society is Collapsing. If you haven't heard the first 2 parts, you know what to do. Go back to the previous 2 episodes and make sure you catch those so that you understand every piece I'm going to share here today because they are connected to what I've shared already. So picking up right where we left off on point number 7, why Western society is collapsing. Number 7, decline in education and intellectual. What does intellectual rigor mean? Intellectual rigor means that someone comes with an idea or belief or perspective. All right, I'm back. Yes.
Take those things inside. They can't take the big weight and stuff.
All right. Are they about to start painting?
Probably. But take them out.
I think they're going to do the other buildings. I'll be able to finish this and I'll do it. All right. All right. So let's get to the questions and comments here. We have exactly 40 minutes. Let me set my timer. And where are we at? There it is. We like to start on time and end on time. And so let's stick to our discipline. Let's see what we got over. We'll start on YouTube, then we'll go to Instagram, then we'll come to TikTok. If you're on TikTok, make sure you're following me follow my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram. The links are both in my profile. O-Dog said, doctors aren't experts on anything. They get little training on the efficacy and safety of those shots. RFK says he's never known a safe jab, yet he recommended the measles jab. Okay, fair enough. O-Dog says, Suzanne Humphrey's book, Dissolving Illusions. The jabs are poison to the highest degree. So there's a book for y'all. Suzanne Humphrey has a book called Dissolving Illusions. So I'm going to look that one up. I never heard of that one, but I will look it up. Suzanne Humphrey. Suzanne Humphreys, MD. I see her. The book is called Dissolving Illusions. And all right, I see it here. All right, I will add this to my list. Dr. Andrew Wakefield was a doctor that accidentally found there's a link. The medical mafia blackballed him. The link is actually between gastrointestinal inflammation and cognitive delay. I didn't know about that, but this is good info. So O-Dog Not from Menace has some info over here on YouTube. Dr. Andrew Wakefield, and he got blackballed. Now, I do know about the blackballing people in the medical space. So those guys who came on the Rogan show during the virus all got blackballed. O-Dog said, only an idiot lets someone else think for them. Well, O-Dog, by that frame, there's a lot of idiots out there. Fishing Weekend Warrior says, the same as any science, if you have a quantum theory that you spent 50 years on, when proved wrong, you will fight it. Exactly. That's the situation. That's what we got when it comes to the medical industry. They have a certain dogma, and there's a lot of investment required to get into the industry in the first place. So I understand why people are pushing back. Crespo Realty, good morning. Greed very present in real estate agents. Yeah, we've heard. Remember the 2006 to 2008 issue. Angie, good morning to you. Good to see you here. All right, let's see what we got over here on TikTok. Someone asked, am I allowing people to come up? No, but I will read your comments. Traditional said, I used to work at Pfizer. All right, shout out to people who worked at Pfizer. Carla said, we didn't used to have big pharma commercials on TV. Yeah, because they realized they could sell more of their stuff if they advertised it. Kim, congrats on the badge. Carlos said, no transparency. That's correct. Courtney said, I work at Vandy. Vanderbilt, or is that a different company? Is Vanderbilt the college, or are you talking about Vandy? Is that somebody else? Johns Hopkins is in the hood, actually. Okay. Brian said, the best medical school in the country. What city is that? Is that New York? VA Buckeye said, VA Buckeye. Pharmaceutical companies provide kickbacks to doctors for prescriptions. Yes, that's what I mean. Exactly. So if they write certain prescriptions, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to hurt you, but if you give them an incentive, people respond to incentives. That's the problem. Jordan said, not 8 total. Residence doesn't count as being a doctor. Okay, got you. Destructor said, you should research some basics. RN is 4 years. MD is 8 years plus residency. Oh, why do I need to research that, Destructor? If I could just ask the audience and they can tell me. And how does any of that have anything to do with anything that I said here today? Me researching that doesn't mean anything. Traditional said, that's why holistic doctors are the best. I generally agree. Jordan said, residents is still schooling, they're paid minimum wage. Okay, so see, this is why we're in the information war, folks. We can't even agree on these things. Murphy said, medicine is a practice. That's a very good point. Lauren said, labor birth in the U.S. can be a whole topic if you start looking at stats of life, et cetera. It's crazy. Yes, I know. I experienced it. VA said, my daughter and son-in-law have refused to take the jabs. My granddaughter, because they don't trust them. Well, see, now they have access to that information. How old are your grandkids? J Bean, thanks for the follow. Traditional said, all these meds have bad side effects. Well, all of them have some kind of side effect. They got to put that in the fine print on the commercials that nobody ever reads. That's only because of the law. If they didn't have to put that in there, they wouldn't even say it. To Amber said, is RFK planning on taking on sugar industry? If not, he's a fraud for real. Yes, he has been very clear about that. I think his first thing is the jabs, and then the secondary thing, at least from what I've heard, is the sugar in the foods. The thing is, there's a lot of money involved in that, and they're not going to sit there and let him do it. Mark Minshew said, my daughter was kicked out of her pediatrician practice for refusing any jab for her baby. I believe you. That's what they do. Renting Palm Beach says, same with pets. Oh, I would guess. Amber said, it's not science-based. Yeah, I would believe that. The thing is, science, just calling something science used to mean something until the virus. When the virus happened and people start saying, well, it's science, so you should do it. And then it turned out that they were lying. Now the word science doesn't mean anything anymore. So they just hoard out the word science, and now it doesn't have the same value that it used to have. Justin said, that's why a newborn is not developed his immune system to fight out those agents. Yes, exactly. So that means they might get sick. You put your kid goes to daycare, your kid's going to get sick, guaranteed. My kid doesn't even go to daycare, but whenever he's around a bunch of other kids, a few times it's happened, he's gotten a cold or sick or something like that a couple days later. But that's what you got to go through in order to build up the immune system. That's part of the process. Will said, I agree with him 100%. All right, great. Susie Scuffle, good morning. Thank you for the share. Pinto said, this is the age of truth. Nothing can hide anymore. Well, some people see it that way. The problem is we have access to so much information that we can't even agree on what's true. That's the problem. So a bunch of y'all confirming. Yes, so all y'all know what I'm talking about here. Amber said, no, he did not. What are you saying no to, Amber? Erica, #1 gifter badge. Congrats. And thanks for the cheering crab. What are you asking about here? I forgot what people are confirming here, but I think I was talking about the CDC. Tristan said, my child. Oh, yeah, I did answer that. TikTok Tom said, liberals want children sick. I don't know if that's what they actually want. I do think they want to make some money, and there's a connection between people being sick. The medical industry is not designed to get you healthy. That's why it's not called the health industry. It's called the medical industry. The medical industry, as long as you are sick and you need their interventions and their pharmaceuticals, then you have to keep paying for it, or your insurance pays for it, which is basically you're paying for it. And they got a recurring payment process. Anybody knows anything about businesses, they know you want recurring money coming in every month. Troll said, funny how you don't hear about it anymore. Yeah, exactly. Austin said, Pope Francis passed away. RIP to Pope Francis. JN said, this administration is all about the billionaires. They will fall like dominoes. I don't know about that one. We've addressed that already, JN. JN said, RFK is not a doctor. Neither am I. So Doesn't mean a doctor can't be questioned by somebody who's not a doctor, which is exactly what I told you. The appeal to authority fallacy was a college professor who I know said, I'm a college professor. Who are these people to be questioning me when they're not professors? That's an appeal to authority fallacy. Just because you have a position does not mean someone who does not have your position cannot question you. As a matter of fact, you should be happy when someone who doesn't have your position questions you, because it's an opportunity for you to prove your expertise. So I used to play basketball professionally. If someone starts questioning me about basketball, I'm happy, because any question you ask me, I can answer. Even if you maybe think you disagree with all my positions, by the end of the conversation, you understand exactly where I'm standing and you understand why I know what I'm talking about. So I have no problem being questioned. And anyone who is an expert should have no problem being questioned. Mama T, good morning. Dog driving car said, you make an excellent doctor. I disagree. I'm not good at following dogma. I would start going against the grain as soon as I got in there and I'd get fired. Mama T, thank you. VA Buckeye said, there's a link between myasthenia gravis and the jab. I got MG after being forced to get the jab. I've never even heard of that, but I understand. Mrs. Malone, good morning to you. Traditional said, that's exactly what they're doing to RFK. Yes, exactly. That's the plan. They are trying to discredit him so nobody listens to what he says, because they can't stop him from talking, at least not yet. They're just trying to discredit him so anything he says, nobody listens to it. Ocean said, doctors want money, money, and more money. Well, everybody wants money, Ocean Love. We can't just put it on doctor. Everybody wants to make money. We all go to work every day to make money. We don't go to work for fun. We go to work for money. The problem is when you get the conflict of interest between what you're doing to make money and is it actually helping people. So if I was a personal trainer, for example, I don't go and train people in the gym because I do it just for fun. I may have fun. I'm doing it to make money. But every single thing that I'm doing for my clients is helping them and it's helping me. There's no conflict of interest. It's not like me telling you do 10 push-ups is going to hurt you in any way and is making me money. It's going to make me money because I'm training you, but it's also going to help you. So there's no conflict. My interests and your interests are completely aligned. So there's nothing wrong with making money as long as your interests are aligned with the people that you're allegedly helping. It's when there's a conflict between your interest and interest of the person who's helping. That's when we start to get into questionable, murky waters. That's what's happening in the medical industry. O-Dog said the Joe Rogan doctors are hacks themselves. Well, I don't know how you know that, but okay. Truth doesn't need anyone to defend it. Let it loose and it defends itself. That I agree with. O-Dog said liberals don't want children around because they think the world is overpopulated. Well, that's what I heard many people saying. Joe Garrett Parker said, what's blackball? Blackball means you basically block somebody out the industry. So even if they keep trying, nobody wants to do business with them so that they can't do anything. So if I was blackballed out of the, let's say I was blackballed off social media. That means all the powers that be get together and they, they collude to say, all right, don't let Dre use social media. So then no matter which app I try to use, I'm blocked on all of them. So I'm basically blackballed off of all social media. So it's basically a collusion by the powers that be to block somebody from doing business in a certain space. So doctors, if they come out and go against the dogma of the medical industry, they get blackballed out of the industry. It means they can't get a job. They can't work at a hospital. People discredit everything that they said. And then when they come up and say something on Joe Rogan, then somebody goes and Googles them. And all they see on the first 2 pages of Google is people discrediting and ridiculing them so that their credibility is ruined. Even if they have a good point, most people just go off of what they hear. So that's what blackballing means. Tara Mills said they push surgeries for the money. Yes, they do. Oh, absolutely. And again, a C-section is surgery. Pickle said, know your provider. True. Lauren said, my first son, I did rec jabs at birth and the nurse told me I'm a good parent. Haha. My second, I didn't. Yeah, well, they're happy you do whatever they tell you to do because then they don't have to argue with you. You just follow the rules. And he said they probably learned through years of experience more so than just medical school. Well, it's both. Medical school preps them for what they're going to do. Matt said you're going to risk other kids' health. Now, how am I risking somebody else's health, Matt? Please tell me how. Lauren said my doctor is old. I chose a delayed, shortened list, and my doctor loves, and I'm not doing the full list. All right, that's great. I just say make informed consent. That's all I said. All right, not everybody's going to do the same thing that I did. Not all of you want to have a home birth, and not all of you would not get any jabs for your kid. Do what you want to do, but just make sure you know what you're doing. What I don't want people doing is just whatever the hospital says just because they're at the hospital. And by the way, having a child is not a hospital situation, by the way. You go to the hospital when you're sick. Being pregnant is not sick. Miranda, thank you for the share. Freedom, good morning to you. Cass said, my granddaughter didn't jab. Doc got mad because he doesn't get the money. Maybe. If he didn't jab her, he could jab somebody else. So he'd be all right. He'll make his money back. Freedom said, on the bike side, Prope and Klaus Schwab have been announced dead this morning. So, yeah, I didn't know anything about that. That would not have gotten on my radar, but a few of you mentioned the Pope. Rest in peace to the Pope. Podcast said, it makes no sense. You're brilliant. You put a question mark. Are you asking or telling? Traditional said, I challenge doctors all the time. Well, that's good. I just don't even talk to them, so I can't challenge them because I don't speak to them. Dolly MAK said, my body, my choice. That's right. There you go. My body, my choice. What happens to that when it came to the jab? It was my body, my choice when the argument was over reproductive freedom, which is nonsense framing, i.e. abortion, taking the life of your child. But then when it came to the jab, it was not my body, my choice anymore. Oh, it's for the better of the public. That's bullshit. JT Coin Rings, thank you for the badge over there on IG. Joe Garrett Parker, no problem. Freedom says, a constitutional right to be able to parent your child as you see fit. Yeah, that's right. Except when you're in the hospital, they don't make it sound like that. Cheyenne Smith said, what's the solution? Well, there isn't a solution. The solution is, Cheyenne, if you want the hard answer, this is the real solution, is that everyone needs to think for themselves and do not believe something just because someone with a position or a certain level of authority said it, i.e. the medical industry. They are most guilty of this. I think of all the spaces in the world, in the United States, the medical industry is most guilty of using their frame of authority to coerce you into doing what they say just because they said it. I'm not a fan of that. The only group in the world that just because they say something you should probably comply is the police, because you can always go to court and get a lawyer and push back against whatever they did. But any other group that says do it just because I said so, don't listen to them. If the police tell you to do something, do it. Okay. So if a cop pulls you over and you think they pulled you over because they were profiling you because you're black and you're driving a nice car in a nice neighborhood, you might think it's some bullshit, but comply with the cop. Okay. Comply with the cop, call your lawyer, and you fight the ticket. But any other group, don't do it just because they said it. Michelle said they definitely don't like to be questioned. Yes, exactly. No one who's built a lifetime based on a certain authority wants that authority questioned. Tristan said hospitals are a for-profit business. Well, the whole industry is. Michelle said they make more money with C-sections. That's why they push it. Yes, of course. And if they do a C-section, the other thing they do is they increase the speed. Because if your labor is going to take, when my son was born, the labor was like all day. It was all day. My child was born at like 6:45 at night. The labor started in the morning. So it was like how long was this labor? It was probably 12 hours, maybe 14 hours. If you're on labor for 12, 14 hours at the hospital, they want to get you out of that damn bed, because the sooner they get you out of the bed, the sooner they can bring the next woman in the bed. And the more people in the bed, the more turnover. It's like a restaurant. They want to turn over the tables. So when you go to a restaurant, they don't like when you just sit there and talk after the meal's over, unless you keep buying drinks and spending money. If you ain't spending no money, they want you to get the hell out the restaurant so they can put somebody else at that table, because that table makes money. If you ain't spending any money, they don't want you sitting there hanging out. It's the same thing in a hospital. They want you to get out of there so they can get the next person in. So a C-section allows them to time. They can basically time and plan out how fast they're going to get everybody done. So this is why there's a friend of mine who's having a baby soon, and I saw him post this on social media that he is going to have a C-section. It's like he already knows he's going to have a C-section. So sometimes the doctor will try to plan this out with the mother before you even go into labor. It's going to be a C-section, because that way the hospital knows, okay, this woman's only going to be in the hospital bed for 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours. They can plan around it because they know how long you're going to be there, because they know you got to go after the C-section. Now they can plan the next one, the next one, the next one, and that helps them make money. And again, when you're in a capitalistic society where everybody is driven by making money, people are going to do things to make money. And then it becomes this conflict of interest. So that's the problem with the industry. Freedom said, there's a reason why I give the 15, 30, 45-minute blocks in medical. What is that? Freedom, tell me more about that. Mendu said, I think it's the best reason to trust him because he's been in the streets and did all kinds of stuff. Well, some people see it that way. Some people see the opposite. Shaina said, or they may pass. That's not true. Look at the history. So many children and mothers have lost. Yes, well, there's a history on both sides, Shaina. So, I mean, you could argue both sides of that. Freedom said, that's why if I watch the news overseas, they'll tell you stuff you'll never hear here. Yeah, well, they're not allowed to say it. Tara said, all the people I know who got the jab kept getting the virus. Yeah, well, the virus didn't do what they said it was going to do. So, I mean, the jab didn't do what they said it was going to do. I think I got the virus once, maybe twice. I don't know, because I never took the test. Michelle said there have been people that got the jab and they got the virus. Yeah, we know, a lot of them. So there, a bunch of you said it right there. Creating a solution for a problem that they cause. Yes, exactly. That's the industry. Tammy Morse, thanks for the follow. Beth, green eyes, good morning. Kid Colt said, dude, go to work. LOL, I'm at work. Catherine said, everyone somehow still fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Yeah, that's a fact. Tara said, the left plays on emotion. Yes, they do. The right does as well. The left does it more, I will say. That's what I'll say. Amy said, y'all have poor critical thinking skills. Amy, what's your challenge? What's the point? Michelle said, Big Pharma doesn't make money on the healthy and living. They make money on the sick. And yes, they do. That is correct. If you're not taking medicines, they can't make money off you. So they are not interested in anyone they can't make money off of. They just want to get rid of you, or they want to convert you, one or the other. But if they can't convert you, they just get rid of you. Just get out of here. We don't want to talk to you. Freedom said, the problem is state schools and government have guardianship over kids because parents... I saw all the comments, but I just had to refresh my screen. So if you had a comment that I didn't see, go ahead and post it again. Beth said, they don't like him because of Big Pharma. Well, Big Pharma doesn't like him. That's the they. The they is Big Pharma. Big Pharma tells the hospitals and the doctors and the nurses what to do, what to think, and what steps to take. So Big Pharma controls all of it. That's the issue. Big Pharma pays the FDA. Big Pharma pays for medical schools. So they control everything. So they can, if you get Big Pharma out of the picture, then RFK can get his point across. But they're not going to get out of the way. Giacomo said, I used to work in a medical office and they would bring gourmet lunches. Yeah, I know some people in medical sales and they love what they do. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say. Freedom said, my uncle had no degree. He was a medical salesperson. It's a great industry to get in. If you can get in medical sales and you learn how to actually sell, it's a great industry to make good money. Pharma lawyers make tons of money as well. Yeah, there's always money in the legal space because there's always people going to court, especially in America. It's a very litigious society. Cheyenne said, it's the scientists that work hard and do the research. The thing is, their research is funded. Who funds the research, Cheyenne? Research alone is not worth money. What's worth money is getting certain outcomes from research, and who pays for it? The companies that want to get a certain outcome. So I'm not saying they all do it. What I'm saying is pharmaceutical companies fund research, and interestingly enough, most of the research that they fund tends to prove that their pharmaceuticals are safe and should be taken by as many people as possible. Interestingly enough, what a coincidence. That's what I'm saying. Catherine says, then you have to live with the damage you help do to people who trust these doctors. Yes, well, there's a lot of things we got to live with in life because the trade-off of a free society is that people can do whatever they want to do and think what they want to think. There's no fix for that. To Amber said, I teach history. In this section of U.S. history, please stick to entrepreneurial culture. Please. Amber, what are you challenging me on? I haven't heard you say exactly what you're challenging. Giacomo said, we do need to ask why the newborn jab schedule is so aggressive, like 30 jabs before 6 months. Yes, it's a very good question, which is why I said no jabs for me. Freedom said, how do you know that your process of validating truth isn't just more sophisticated version of your own bias? That's a great question. This is the reason why we're in the information war, Freedom. There is no arbitrary, objective judge of what's true and what's not true. That's why we're in an information war. It is never ending. This war will never end. That's the issue. And by the way, Amber and Beyond, you said, I teach history in this section of U.S. history, and it looks like you're challenging me, Amber, but this is an appeal to authority fallacy, what you just said, that you teach history. The fact that you teach history doesn't mean that anything you say about history cannot be questioned or challenged. So you got to tell me exactly what your challenge is. MH said, do you think this is why so many chemicals are put into foods, daily items are to make us sick? No, I don't think it's to make us sick necessarily. I think that may be a byproduct. I think the reason chemicals get put in the food because they last longer and they can sit on the shelf longer, which means they can sell more of them. It's harder to keep fresh produce fresh. It's hard to keep produce fresh than it is to keep a box of cookies fresh. Why? Because the cookies are not real. There's a bunch of chemicals and a bunch of non-natural things in them. That's why they're called processed foods. And a box of cookies can sit on the shelf for 3 weeks, whereas some tomatoes can only sit on the shelf for 3 days. And you got to swap the tomatoes out, which means you got to sell them and people got to use them. The cookies, you can have them sitting in there forever. So any of you go into the pantry in your house, you can have that stuff sitting in there for a month and it's still, I guess, good. Giacomo said, dude spends a lot of time at the gym. I think you can fight LOL. That's not the right connection to make. Just because somebody's at the gym doesn't mean they can fight. which gym are they at? Are they lifting weights? Are they doing cardio? Or are they actually fighting? Don't think somebody can fight just as they have muscles. They got to actually be fighting to know how to fight. Let's see. Fishing Weekend Warrior said, the last person I trust is a teacher. Well, teachers are guilty similar to the medical industry. Not as bad as the medical industry, but they're close. That's what I'll say. Not all teachers, but they're close. I gave you an example of a college professor who said something like what I was saying. AJ said, what's the real RFK? What's RFK's real agenda? Well, make America healthy again. Cheyenne said, there's so much that goes into what scientists do. We have come such a long way. Okay. I agree with those statements. And what's your point? Ali, good morning. Cheyenne said, pushback is good, but it has to be based on facts and scientific method. Okay. Who's the arbiter of what is a fact and what is not a fact? Who decides which facts get discussed and which facts don't get discussed? That's the information war, Cheyenne, is that there is no one person that says, okay, well, here are the facts that are allowed to be discussed and here are the facts that we can't discuss. That's why we have this battle. And that's why the most important thing these days is persuasion and influence, not facts. If you just have facts, somebody else can have facts. And our facts can both be true, but my facts are different than your facts. So who do we believe? There's no answer to the question. So Giacomo said, the only reason commercials exist so people can pressure their doctors and they are all willing. Well, okay, fair enough. User said, pediatric doctors get bonuses. They all get bonuses for that. Steele Down said, natural cures are not studied as much because there's no money in it. Well, it's not as much money. And very true. They are studied. It's just they don't get as much attention. Steele Down is the more accurate thing to say. They don't get as much attention because not as much money to be made by the medical industry. Therefore, you don't see it on TV. You don't see ads for it because they can't make as much money. And therefore, since they don't have as much money, they can't pay for advertising the way the medical industry does, or the big pharma, does. But natural cures do work. The challenge, another challenge, Steele Down 81, I'm glad you brought this up, is that for a natural cure to get to the conscious of a person who might benefit from it, that person has to be willing or able to go look for a cure that is outside of what the traditional medical industry tells them. Most human beings don't do that. Most humans are mentally and intellectually lazy. So as soon as something goes wrong medically, the first thing they think is, let me go to the hospital. Let me go see what the doctor has to say. But there is another solution that could possibly help you better and more effectively and efficiently than what Big Pharma would subscribe or prescribe. But if you don't think to even ask the question, then you would never get the answer. So what you're saying is correct. Mel said, do I support RFK, the man who said black people don't need the same vaccines as white people? Well, Mel, first of all, that's not the topic here today, what he said about that. I didn't hear him say that. If he said it, I'm not questioning whether what you're saying is true or not, but he didn't say that. I'm not questioning whether what you said is true, that he said it. However, that is not the topic here today. So the topic is not everything RFK has ever said or done. The guy's like 70 years old. That could be a 20-hour conversation. The topic is what he's saying specifically about the medical industry as a whole and on autism. So your question here is a straw man frame. You started with the word so, which is often a tell for straw manning my point. And now I just pointed out to you. Mahoney's World said doctors don't learn about vaccines in medical school. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that word. They don't learn about the jab in medical school. They're just taught to give them. Yeah, well, that's enough. That's the point. That's enough. Freedom said, you be practicing just like they do. James Collins, good morning. Mel said, RFK said black people don't need the same vaccines as white people. Okay. I'm not questioning whether what you're saying is true or not. What I'm saying is that's not the topic. AJ said he's discredited because he said autism comes from the jab and that autism didn't exist growing up. Well, that's not exactly what he said. Again, I've already given some details of what he did say, what he didn't say. So AJ, I don't know if you were here when I said that. Giacomo said, literally, they used to color a black ball next to your name on a list of unions. I believe that. Shana said, what if the good point is wrong? According to who? Shana, who's the judge? Who's the judge as to what is right or wrong, good or bad? Hello, Tracy said, the jabs work so well. How does not taking them risk the health of others? Well, what people are saying is if you don't take the jab, you might end up getting the sickness, and then you can give the sickness to someone else. But if the jab works, then why would you get the sickness? So it's kind of a circular reasoning. Hello, Tracy Rose. So you're right in what you're saying, but nobody ever quite answered that question. We know that during the virus that we had a few years ago. Nobody ever quite answered that question. So if everybody who gets the jab can't get the virus, then if I don't get the jab and I get the virus, then who am I hurting? The answer should be nobody, because you all got the jab. So if 100 of you all got the jab and I didn't, and I come in the room and I have the virus, all of y'all are safe because y'all got the jab, right? But that's not what happened. So I don't know. So some say the virus can change. So the virus can update in other ways and get better. So it can basically undo your jab. So that means the jab isn't what they said it was. Either way, you end up in the wrong place if you're saying that the jab stops the virus, because again, if the jab stops the virus, then that's it. The jab stopped the virus. So, I don't know. Lee and Lisa said the best advocate for your health is you. That's right. But people got to get their own information. That's the challenge today. Shayana said pregnancy and birth is a medical issue. No, it's not. Shayana, that's completely wrong. Pregnancy and birth are not a medical issue. Pregnancy and birth is a natural thing that happens in life, like going to the bathroom. All right, it's a natural thing that happens. Man being woman was designed to give birth. That is not a medical issue. You go to the hospital when you're sick, when something's wrong. Having a baby is not something wrong. You're not sick. Nothing is wrong with you. You don't need to go to a hospital to give birth. But the medical industry has done a great job of psyoping people into believing that having a baby is somehow a medical issue. Therefore, the first thing you got to do is go see a doctor and get some type of intervention for it. It's not a medical issue to have a baby. Tell me how that's a medical issue. How are you sick? What danger are you in having a baby? Many of you may not understand that for centuries, women gave birth without going to a hospital. That's a relatively new thing that you need to go to a hospital to give birth. What happened is a lot of people are so afraid of what might go wrong, they go to the hospital just in case something does go wrong. Then they get you doing stuff that you otherwise didn't need to do. Hefe says that means they have to keep updating the jab so they can keep giving it to you. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. They want to get you on it so you stay on it. O-Dog says natural cures were deemed snake oil due to the Flexner report. I never heard of the Flexner report, but I do know a lot of people think that natural cures are like snake oil and it doesn't work, and this is some garage science. A lot of people think that way about anything that doesn't come from the mainstream. O-Dog said RFK said black kids don't need the same jabs as white because the research indicated that the jabs were more harmful to black boys. I swear some black women love propaganda. Yeah, okay, so O-Dog is verifying what Mel said over here on TikTok. I didn't hear that, but again, it's not even the topic here today, so it's fine. If he said it, he said it. But I can't go into everything he ever said. We can't do that. We Athena, good morning. Where are we? I see a lot of y'all having some back and forth on here. Healthy back and forth. I like the healthy back and forth y'all having in the comments. Amber said the only way to neutralize the FDA is the elimination of capitalism, a system you worship. Amber, have I hit a nerve here today? A system I worship? That's an interesting framing that you gave there. I don't worship capitalism. I live here. I live in the United States of America. You live in America, Amber? You operate in a capitalistic system whether you like it or not. I wouldn't call myself worshiping capitalism. I don't know where you got that frame from or why. And you said the only way to neutralize the FDA is the elimination of capitalism. I don't understand the connection. The FDA is the Food and Drug Administration. Their job is to just make sure that the companies that are selling stuff and putting stuff out on our shelves are putting things that are actually safe and actually good for us. What does that have to do with eliminating capitalism? Why would you need to eliminate capitalism to neutralize the FDA? And my frame was not about neutralizing the FDA. My frame was that the FDA receives money from Big Pharma, which is operating based on capitalism, was about making money. So you've kind of rejiggered my point into something that I did not say. And then you use a little bit of ad hominem here by saying a system you worship. So it seems like I've hit a nerve here. But if you would like to explain, please explain in the space that you have available in the comments. And we got 8 minutes here, everybody. So AJ says aggressive because the body is developing. Getting the immunity early is best. Well, it depends on how you get the immunity. That's the whole question. Queen Jules, thank you for the follow. Cheyenne said it's not true. Most medicines that are created do not leave the lab room. What's not true? Amber said, you speaking on Lincoln's potential machinations and maneuvers on the Civil War. Yeah? So Amber, so Amber was questioning what I was saying about Lincoln and the Civil War. I said, well, this is the frame that some people use. Some say that he started it with, I want to maintain a union. Then later on, he snuck in the slavery issue once the war was already going and he saw that the union was going to win. And that's what some people say about him historically. So Amber, what you're saying is that you teach history. So let's talk about this. History, first of all, if we break it down in 2 words, is his story. History is a story, which means I may have one version of a story. You have another version of a story. There is no dogmatic, everybody must accept it version of any story. Amber, you said you're a teacher. All right, great. Just because you have one version of that history and you read this book, that book, and the third book that says the story is this, and I read a different book that said the story is that, does not make you right and me wrong. And you being a history teacher is completely irrelevant to that fact. I don't have to accept your story. You don't have to accept mine. And you being a history teacher, again, has nothing to do with what history actually is, because you weren't there, right? You don't know Abraham Lincoln. You didn't shake his hand. You weren't there. So you're going off what you read in the book. I'm going off what I read in the book. Why is your version better than my version? Because you're a teacher? That's it? That's your reason? That's not a good enough reason. It's like if we were arguing about Jordan and LeBron, and I said Jordan's better, and you said LeBron's better, and you said, well, Dre, why is Jordan better? And I said, because I played basketball and you didn't, so therefore you can't say that LeBron's better. That's a bullshit frame. Even though I believe Jordan's better, I still have to stand on my argument with some actual reasons other than, well, I played basketball and you didn't, so therefore whatever I say about basketball to anyone who didn't play basketball, you just have to accept mine and you're wrong for saying LeBron. That's not a logical frame. It's more of an emotional frame. It's an appeal to authority. 6 minutes here, folks, on the comments, then we got to go. Tony said, make America healthy again by having measles breakout. Okay. Amber said, whoever said they don't trust teachers, homeschool your kids, trust me, we're all okay with it. So Amber, you're taking that personally. We're just talking about teachers in general. I generally don't trust anyone who uses the frame of their expertise or their professional title as a defense mechanism against their point. That's what I'm saying. So what you just did there, that's the reason why I called it out. You can't use your expertise and your position as a professional in any space and say, you can't question me just because I'm a professional in this space. That's a bullshit frame. And I already said, I gave you an example. There's a college professor did the same thing. She said, I'm a college professor. Who are you to question me? I said, mofo, so who cares you're a college professor? If you're a doctor and I question you on you saying, well, Dre, you need to take this medicine, and I say, why? And you say, well, Dre, I'm a doctor. Who are you to question me? Mofo, you telling me to put that in my body. I'm going to question everybody. In the same way, if you asked me a question about basketball and I answered it and you said why, and I said, well, I played basketball. So just accept what I say just because I said it. Or you asked me a question about writing books and I say, well, I wrote all these books. So anything I say, you got to accept it. Bullshit. If you're truly an expert, you should be able to defend your position without having to use your credibility as a shield for your position. If you're using your credibility as a shield for your position might be based on some bullshit. Doesn't mean it is, but it might be. You should ask yourself why you're using it. That's the question that actually should be asked here. Mel said we have a outbreak because people don't want to get the jab. Well, people have a right to not get the jab. That's where I stand on it. If I don't want to get the jab, I ain't getting the jab. I don't care what outbreak there is. Lee and Lisa says society has been trained to take a pill. That's true. People are saying that because they don't have insurance. Amber said deflection. What did I deflect? Please tell me what deflection I gave. I think I gave I very directly addressed your point. Meg said, I lost my spot. Meg said, internal bleeding, prolapse, tears, baby's cord wrapped around neck, plenty of dangers. Those are possibilities. Those don't happen just because you didn't go to the hospital. Meg, those things that you just said, and tears, do those happen just because you didn't go to the hospital? That can happen even if you're at the hospital. So yes, a doctor could help serve those, but a midwife knows how to do that as well. Midwife has just as much training as a doctor. So everything that I'm seeing here, not everything, but some of the things I'm seeing here in these comments are exactly. O-Dog said, there are doctors that say measles are vitamin A deficiency, supplement the missing micronutrient, problem solved. Systematically, that makes much more sense. Fair. Fishing Weekend Warrior says, show me an economics professor that has a successful business. This is a really good question. There aren't any. Fishing said, Jordan is the GOAT. I agree Jordan's the GOAT, but again, if somebody says LeBron is the GOAT, I still have to respect their argument, even if they don't have my experience in basketball. James said, when I hear snake oil, I think of the government. Well, some think the opposite. Tom said, the only reason why this speedy genius is here to boost his ratings, you guys are just playing it. You talking about me? Speedy genius? I never heard that phrase before, but I'll take that as a compliment. China said, being pregnant is hard and is a risk. Just because we can get pregnant do mean the pregnancy. Not quite. Doesn't mean the pregnancy will be healthy. Again, just because I'm a human being, China, does not mean I'm always going to be healthy. It doesn't mean I should just go to the hospital every day because I might not be healthy. Like, that frame doesn't make any sense. Having a baby is not a medical issue. It's not a medical issue to have a baby. Now, are there medical issues that could occur because you had a baby? The answer is yes. But having a baby in and of itself is not a medical issue. And it's interesting that some of you are arguing that maybe it is because of what might happen. Anything can happen. Driving a car could be a medical issue if I get in an accident. Does that mean I should just drive to the hospital every time I get in the car just in case? What the hell are y'all talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Eating food could be a medical issue. I might get food poisoning. Does that mean I should eat when I eat lunch, I should go to the hospital and eat just in case I get food poisoning so the doctor can help me immediately when it happens? That doesn't make any sense. Having a baby is not a medical issue. Being pregnant is hard and it is a risk. So, does that mean I gotta go to the hospital? Running a marathon is a risk. should I go to the hospital because of it? Let's see. No, I don't let people come up and talk with me on my lives. I'm answering you all's comments, but no, nobody comes up on my live. We got 2 minutes here, folks. China said more women serve now than back in days because of evolution of medicine. More women survive. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't make it a medical situation. Amber said, you said Big Pharma gives money to the FDA and that is not an incentive to sell. Yes, it is. Big Pharma gives money to the FDA so that the FDA is, again, this is just introducing, conflicts of interest. So I'm not saying that makes them do anything. What I'm saying is it introduces a conflict of interest. I'm explaining human nature. Introducing the conflict of interest that Big Pharma giving money to the FDA. FDA does receive a lot of funding from the Big Pharma. Then the FDA may go easier on the way that they regulate big pharmaceutical companies, which allows pharmaceutical companies to sell things that if the FDA was not receiving money from them, wouldn't allow. So that allows the big pharma companies to sell more things that they otherwise would not be able to sell if they were not greasing the pockets of certain people. And again, as soon as you allow money to come into the equation, you introduce conflicts of interest. I'm not saying this actually happened. I'm not reporting this. What I'm saying is when you introduce a conflict of interest, you have the possibility of it happening. And that question alone is enough reason to question everything coming out of the medical industry. That's exactly what I said. So please do not rephrase my language. I'm really good at languaging my thoughts. If you're going to challenge me on something, challenge me on what I actually said, not your version of what I said. My version is better than your version. Erica said, I respect teachers, but still do my own research and make the best decision I can for my family, which everybody should do. Mel said, this man is a smooth talker, but just because it sounds good doesn't make it right. Well, Mel, thank you for the compliment. I am a smooth talker. And just because it sounds good doesn't make it right. I agree. My question to you, Mel, is who's the judge of what's right and what's wrong? Me? You? Who? Who's the judge? So my version of what I say is right to me. Your version is right to you. We don't have to agree, but I got my position. You got your position. You make your argument. I make my argument. And that's what it is. If you have a better argument than what I got, Mel, here's what you do. This is what I tell every person. You start your own live stream and you make better arguments than what I made and let the marketplace decide. Open marketplace is the ultimate arbiter in the space in which I operate. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a registered capitalist. And in this world, if you're good at what you do, you go into the open marketplace and you prove it. If you can't prove it, then, hey, what are we supposed to do? All right, let me take a couple more comments, then we go. Jessica said, doctor doesn't cure people. They just write prescription. Well, doctor's job is not to cure, not in America. Doctors are not here to cure us. They're here to, again, the medical system in the United States keeps you plugged into the system because it keeps the money coming in. Mel said, bro, you didn't just compare pregnancy to running. Well, again, Mel, let's not dumb down the conversation. I think you very much understood my analogy there. If you didn't understand it, then you're in the wrong place. Amber says a conflict of interest. Okay, great. So we're on the same page. And James said that would make Big Pharma a bureaucrat. Well, aren't they? Rosa, how do I find me on YouTube? Okay, so we're wrapping this up, folks. We're at 10 o'clock. My YouTube channel, the link is in my profile on TikTok. So as soon as I end this live, go to my profile on TikTok. There's my YouTube channel is in there and my Instagram is in there. So follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube. And if you got a question or comment about anything, if you DM on TikTok, my assistant sees those DMs. I do have a new chat bot. You can get my chat bot by going to dreallday.com/AI. That's how you get access to my chat bot. If you DM, my assistant will respond and give you the link to that. Actually, you DM me anywhere, my assistant will respond to it. My assistant's email is on my YouTube channel as well. So if you want to reach me that way. And that's that, folks. I told you we want to start on time, end on time. I don't want to keep y'all here longer than 10 o'clock. So we're going to make sure that these are tight and ending at 10 o'clock, no later every day. Thank you to my moderators, everybody who was in here keeping it up, and to everybody in the comment section, whether you agree with me, disagree with me. Those of you said I'm a smooth talker, but I'm wrong. I appreciate the compliment. All right, I take that positively. So come back here tomorrow and we can argue some more. I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow. We might talk about this white guy down in Texas with the Unite the White rally. I talked about that on Friday, but then the rally actually happened on Saturday. Did y'all see that? It was like 20 people at the rally, and this dude sounded mad crazy. I might talk about him and trash him tomorrow. This white guy talking about protect white people from black people. We may talk about that or something else. I got to see what's going on in the news. Everybody have a great Monday. I will see you all tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. Eastern is when I start these lives. 8 a.m. Eastern, everybody. Thank you for the agreements, the disagreements, the comments, the shares. I will see y'all tomorrow. Work on your game. We out.